Your smartphone weighs more than some of the most precious possessions of this era. Imagine it, a sleek rectangle of glass and metal, with unseen power, capable of connecting you to the entire world in an instant. Now, holding a rough-hewn wooden spoon, its grain worn smooth by countless users, or perhaps a simple, tarnished silver chalice, a testament to its rarity and the painstaking labor of its creation. The chasm between our modern abundance of information and material possessions and the scarcity and tangible nature of medieval life. We live in a cacophony of instant notifications, flashing screens, and a constant demand for our attention. Notion of the medieval past, often painted as a simpler, quieter time, is a seductive illusion. That illusion were to shatter, not with a bang, but with the gentle rustle of parchment. What if you, relentless hum of the 21st century, were to awaken not in your familiar bedroom, but in the hushed confines of a medieval monastery, suddenly stripped of its modern complexities and plunged into a world defined by quiet devotion and manual labor? This is the premise of Historian Sleepy, and in this first sub-part, the modern illusion shattered, we begin to dismantle that comforting, inaccurate perception of medieval tranquility. Life changes as the jarring alarm of your phone is replaced by the resonant toll of a distant bell, to the soft glow of a digital clock, but to the faint grey light of dawn filtering through a narrow, leaded glass window is cool, carrying the earthy scent of damp stone and the faint, sweet aroma of beeswax. Woolen tunic scratches against your skin, a stark contrast to the soft cotton of your pajamas. You sit up on a straw-filled mattress, the rustle of the dried stalks a surprisingly loud sound in the profound silence. Your hands, surfaces of keyboards and touchscreens, feel clumsy as they fumble with the simple tie of your habit. A Benedictine monk at the Abbey of St. Albans circa 1150 AD. 50 is a time of significant transition in England. Norman influence is firmly established. The church plays a central role in all aspects of life. The reign of King Stephen has been tumultuous, but at St. Albans, capable leadership of Abbot Robert de Gorham, life proceeds with a measured, predictable cadence. You are not a scholar in the grand tradition, but a lay brother, tasked with the daily duties that keep the monastery functioning. Stepping out of your Spartan cell, a small cubicle with bare stone walls and a single shelf for your few belongings, stream of other monks, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of oil lamps. Steps on the flagstone floor are the only sounds, a hushed symphony of devotion. The clatter of your modern mind, fragmented thoughts of emails and deadlines, feels utterly alien here. You try to focus on the immediate, seeping through your thin sandals, the weight of the coarse wool against your shoulders. Your first task is the Matins service. Dawn darkness. You shuffle into the vast, echoing nave of the Abbey Church. The soaring arches, the reaching towards a vaulted ceiling lost in shadow, are breathtaking. The air is thick with the lingering scent of incense and the faint odor of old parchment. The candlelight casts dancing shadows on the ancient frescoes adorning the walls, depicting saints from the lives of saints, their vibrant colors muted by centuries of smoke and time. As you stand with your fellow monks, Rusty from Dessous joins the Gregorian chant. The ancient Latin words, unfamiliar yet strangely comforting, rise and fall, a wave of sound that seems to absorb all other disturbances. You notice Brother John, a man with a perpetually worried brow, moving in silent prayer beside you. You catch his eye, and he offers a faint, almost imperceptible nod. It's a small gesture. Such connections are deeply felt. Following the service, you proceed to the refectory for prandium breakfast. The long, are set with simple earthenware bowls. Today's fare is a thick, hearty pottage made from barley and root vegetables, a chunk of dark, dense bread. The silence is maintained, soft scraping of spoons against pottery and the occasional cough. A senior monk, Brother Michael, this rule of Saint Benedict, his voice a low drone that weaves itself into the fabric of the morning. You try to listen. The wisdom of the monastic life keeps snagging on the memory of a steaming cup of coffee and the crisp bite of a croissant. Brother Thomas, a gruff voice breaks through your reverie. It is Brother Gregory, the cellarer, calloused hands, and a stern expression. The barrels in the cellar need checking. Be of good quality for the feast day. You nod, your heart sinking slightly. The cellar is damp and cool, with the sweet, yeasty aroma of fermentation. The stone walls are slick with condensation, casts long, distorted shadows. You carefully examine the wooden barrels, tapping them with a knuckle, listening for the telltale hollow sound that indicates they are sound. You recall a historical footnote about monastic brewing, centers of brewing innovation developing complex recipes and techniques that influenced later brewing traditions. You run your hand over the rough, weathered wood, the texture a tangible connection to the labor that went into its creation. Later, in the scriptorium you assist with the copying of manuscripts. The air here is different, filled with the dry and the sharp tang of ink. Rows of monks sit at sturdy wooden desks, quills scratching rhythmically against the parchment. The light is softer, filtered through larger windows, tasked with rubricating, adding the decorative red lettering to the beginning of chapters. Your modern eyes, accustomed to the crisp perfection of printed texts, struggle with the slight imperfections of the hand-drawn letters. Into the inkpot, the thick, viscous liquid, a far cry from the instant flow of a ballpoint pen. Carefully form the letter I for initium, its curves and flourishes demanding absolute concentration. You notice Brother Anselm, younger monk with a keen intellect, engrossed in translating a Greek text. He looks up and smiles, a rare, genuine expression. A challenging passage. Brother Thomas, he says, his voice soft, but the pursuit of knowledge is a worthy one. The concept of quiet in the medieval period is not one of passive stillness, but of a structured absence of the modern world's digital clamor. The silence here is not empty, it is filled with the sounds of devotion, of labor. The wind whistling through the cloister, the distant bleating of sheep in the monastery fields, thud of the miller's wheel. These are the sounds that punctuate the day, your internal monologue. However, different story. It's a constant battle between the ingrained habits of your modern existence and the present reality. Check your non-existent phone to scroll through social media, music. These are phantom limbs of your former life. As the day draws to a close, Vesper bells call the monks to prayer. You feel a strange sense of exhaustion, not of the body, but of the mind. The constant effort to remain present, to shed the layers of modern distraction, is draining. You look out at the setting sun, sky in hues of orange and purple, a spectacle that would be lost in the light pollution of your former city. Simplicity of it is profound, almost overwhelming. You realize that the illusion of medieval quiet was not about the absence of noise. The absence of a meaningless noise, of constant manufactured stimulation. This world, its physical hardships and limitations, offers a different kind of peace, a peace found in purpose and presence. As you prepare for post-compline, the final service of the day, the weight of your new reality settles upon you. Transition from the chaos of the modern world to this structured, devotional, existence is more profound than you could have ever imagined. The rhythm of this life will continue, and you will be expected to embrace it, to find your place within its ancient cadence. Into the heart of medieval quiet has only just begun. You've seen the movies, read the books. Reality was something else entirely. The first sensation isn't the jarring buzzes of an alarm, bedside lamp. It's a profound, enveloping stillness. You awaken not to a room, but to a space, a cell. The air, cool against your skin, carries the faint, comforting scent of aged wood and something subtly earthy and dried herbs, your eyes slowly adjusting to the dim light filtering through a narrow, unglazed window, hewn texture of the stone walls, damp in places, cool and solid beneath your tentative touch. There is no mattress, no soft linen. Your sleeping surface is a straw-filled pallet, its rustling a whisper against the pervasive quiet. The coarse wool of your habit, a simple, undyed garment that feels both scratchy and oddly protective, is the only fabric against your skin. Your hands, when you raise them, are rougher than you remember, calloused from labor you haven't yet consciously performed. The quiet is not an absence of sound, but a presence. It's a deep, resonant hum that seems to emanate from the very stones of the building below, from the souls of the men who share this existence. You can hear the soft, rhythmic breathing of another monk in an adjacent cell, a sound so intimate and vulnerable it feels almost sacred, not the frenetic silence of a library, nor the anticipatory hush of a concert hall. This is the silence of ages, silence that has been cultivated, revered, and lived. It's a silence that invites introspection, a silence that strips away the extraneous, leaving only the essential. The routine becomes familiar as the first hesitant rays of dawn, watery light that barely penetrates the thick walls, begin to paint faint lines across the stone floor. Your first act, as it will be every day, is to rise from your pallet. There's no groaning, no stretching to shake off sleep's lingering tendrils. Simple, unhurried movement, a quiet unfolding of limbs. You pull on your rough leather sandals, stiff and smelling faintly of animal hide. The chill of the stone floor seeps through the thin soles, a grounding sensation. Simply a splash of cold water from a communal basin, the water tasting of minerals and the chill of the well. The soap is a rough, lye-based affair that leaves your skin feeling taut. You dress in the familiar, coarse wool of your habit, tying the cord belt tightly around your waist. The weight of it is comforting, physical manifestation of your new identity. You join the other brothers in a dormitorium, a large hall filled with rows of similar pallets. No one speaks. The only sounds are the rustle of wool, the soft thud of feet on stone, the occasional quiet cough. It's a symphony of hushed existence. You make your way to their chapel, immediately overwhelms your senses with its stark beauty. The air here is even cooler, carrying the faint incense and beeswax from the previous night's vigil. Sunlight, now stronger, streams through the narrow, arched windows. It's dancing in the air like tiny golden spirits. The stone altar, unadorned save for a simple wooden cross, smoothed by centuries of touch. The walls are bare, but the very emptiness speaks volumes. To fill the void with prayer and contemplation, you find your place in the choir stalls, wood smooth and polished from countless hands. The rough texture of the kneeler presses against your knees. You join the low of Gregorian chant, your voice, initially hesitant, blending into the ancient melody. The words in Latin, familiar from your previous fleeting exposure to religious texts, but here, sung with such devotion, they take on a new, Found resonance. Brother Thomas, a man whose face is a roadmap of wrinkles etched by sun and prayer, nods to you as you settle in. He's been at this monastery, the Abbey of Saint Benedict of Nursia, founded in the 6th century by Benedict himself for over 40 years. His hands, gnarled and strong, are those of a man who has worked the land, tended the scriptorium, and prayed through countless nights. A few days, yet his quiet presence is a source of comfort. Later, during the morning meal in the refectory, a long hall with heavy wooden tables, he offers a rare smile. The meal is simple, a thick, dark bread, coarse but filling, vegetable pottage, a hearty stew of root, vegetables and grains seasoned with herbs grown in the monastery's own gardens, is cool and clean. The silence is maintained, broken only by the rhythmic reading of scripture by one of the brothers from a raised pulpit. Noted your diligence in the scriptorium yesterday. Brother Thomas murmurs, his voice barely a whisper, brief lull in the reading. You have a steady hand, a valuable gift in these halls. You nod, a shy smile touching your lips. Tutorial, quiet room filled with the scent of parchment and ink had been a revelation. Carefully copying passages from ancient texts, the quill scratching softly against the vellum. It was painstaking work, absolute focus, but there was a deep satisfaction in the slow, deliberate creation of beauty and knowledge. Remember the feel of the quill, the subtle resistance of the ink, the way the letters formed under your guidance. Thank you, you reply, your voice equally hushed. Peaceful work. The peace is the foundation of all true endeavor, he says, his gaze steady. Smallest grain of wheat to the grandest theological treatise, all require the stillness to flourish. You consider his words, simplicity of their truth resonating deeply within you. You recall the constant barrage of notifications, the endless scrolling, the cacophony of opinions that filled your previous life. Here, the loudest sound is the beating of your own heart. In my research that the monastic rule of Saint Benedict, the Regula Benedicti, emphasizes balance, prayer, manual labor, and study. It's a life structured not by external demands, but by an internal rhythm, cultivation of the soul. The concept of ora et labora, pray and work, is not just a motto, fabric of existence. You find yourself looking forward to the communal labor in the gardens. The scent of freshly turned earth, a welcome change from the dusty scriptorium. The physical exertion, though unfamiliar, surprisingly satisfying, a welcome exhaustion that prepares you for rest. The afternoon brings more prayer, more study, and more quiet contemplation. You learn that the Abbey, circa the 11th century, is a self-sufficient community producing its own food, its own tools, the skills required to maintain such an existence of varied and deeply respected. Blacksmith at work. The rhythmic clang of his hammer on anvil, a powerful counterpoint to the pervasive quiet. The illuminators meticulously decorating manuscripts, their vibrant colors a testament to the enduring power of art. Learn that the monastery serves as a center of learning and hospitality, a beacon of stability in a turbulent world. You find yourself unconsciously adopting the slow, deliberate pace of the other monks, your movements becoming more measured, less scattered. As dusk begins to settle, casting long shadows across the courtyard, you feel a profound sense of peace, filled with activity, yet it has passed with a serene, almost dreamlike quality. You return to your cell, palette surprisingly inviting. Before you lie down, you look out the narrow window. The stars are beginning to emerge, and brilliant in the ink black sky, unmarred by any artificial light. Silence of the night is even deeper than the silence of the day, a vast, comforting embrace. you realize that this quiet life, this seemingly austere existence, is a profound gift. It is a life stripped bare, revealing the essential beauty of being. You close your eyes, the scent of dried herbs and damp stone a lullaby to a sleep that is as deep and undisturbed as the ancient stones themselves, ready for whatever the next dawn, quiet day will bring. Most people think they understand this historical period, but nothing could be further from the truth. Preconceived notions, shaped by dramatic reenactments and romanticized literature, crumble like dry parchment in your grasp. Monastic life, especially in the early centuries of its codified existence, about fiery sermons and more about a profound, almost suffocating embrace of quiet. Experience the jarring disorientation of your new existence, the alien feel of rough-spun wool against your skin, weight of a wooden cross against your chest. But now, as the dawn light, thin and watery, begins to filter through the narrow of your cell, you begin to grasp the true bedrock of this existence: silence. The Benedictine rule document of Western monasticism, penned by Saint Benedict of Nursia around 516 AD at Monte Cassino, isn't just a suggestion, it's the very air you breathe. It's the invisible architecture of your days, dictating not just what you do. The rule of Saint Benedict, or Regula Benedicti, is a masterpiece of practical spirituality toward God through a structured, disciplined life, and at its heart, permeating every chapter, profound importance of silence. The months teach you that silence isn't an absence of sound, but a presence of something deeper, conscious cultivation of inner stillness, a deliberate turning away from the cacophony of the world, both external and internal. To listen not just to the rustle of the wind through the ancient oak trees outside the scriptorium, the subtler whispers of your own soul. The rule dedicates an entire chapter, chapter 6, to the virtue of silence. Chapter to be skimmed. It's the bedrock. Let us, therefore, without delay, do something of what the scripture saith. I will take heed to my ways, sin not with my tongue. A restraint on the tongue is a great guard to the soul. This is your new mantra, your tongue. For casual chatter, for witty remarks, for idle gossip, is now a sacred instrument, necessary and with utmost care. Your cell, a stark, Spartan box carved from rough, hewn stone, is your sanctuary and your crucible. The walls are cool and damp to the touch, smelling faintly of earth and something else, old incense and dried herbs. Your pallet is a thin straw mattress, scratchy and surprisingly firm, covered by a coarse woolen blanket. The only furnishings are a small wooden stool and a simple wooden cross nailed to the wall. The light is meager, casting long, dancing shadows that seem to have their own silent language. The air is perpetually cool. In summer, a testament to the thick stone construction designed to withstand the harsh winters of this region. Somewhere in the Loire Valley, you vaguely recall from your fragmented memories. The sounds here are muted, softened by the stone and the sheer weight of the quiet. The distant cooing of doves, the creak of ancient timbers in the chapel, the soft shuffle of sandals on stone floors, these are the only permitted intrusions. The months teach you that communication is a precious commodity. The rule emphasizes that let all be strangers to evil speech. This means no idle talk, planing no gossip. When you must speak, you do so in a low, measured tone. You learn to communicate with gestures, glances, with the subtle inclination of your head, a shared smile with Brother Thomas during the evening meal, a nod of understanding from Father Abbot during matins. These are the rich conversations of your new world. You remember your first attempt at a full conversation, It was with Brother Silas, a wizened man with hands gnarled like ancient roots, was tasked with teaching you the basics of manuscript illumination, precise shade of lapis lazuli you should use for the Virgin Mary's robe. You approached him hesitantly, like a trapped bird. "Brother Silas," you began, your voice a rusty whisper. He turned, his eyes, the color of faded parchment, met yours. He waited, a patient stillness about him. The blue, you stammered, the illuminated manuscript open on the workbench. "Is it too bright?" Brother Silas didn't answer immediately. Manuscript, then back at you. He slowly raised a finger to his lips, a gesture you'd come to understand as a gentle reminder of the rule. Then, with infinite care, a small wooden stylus and drew a tiny, almost imperceptible line on a scrap of parchment, then pointed to the blue. Subtle suggestion, a way to temper the vibrancy, to make it more in keeping with the reverent tone of the scripture. Slow, solemn nod. You understood. That was the entirety of the exchange. No lengthy explanations, no back and forth. Silent, shared understanding forged in the crucible of quiet. This was the art of communication in this life. Teach you that your internal world becomes your most vibrant landscape. Without the constant external distractions, your thoughts, your very essence are laid bare. The rule, in its wisdom, understands this. Chapter 7 on humility, importance of self-abnegation, of putting aside pride. Silence is a powerful tool for this. When you are not speaking, asserting yourself, not demanding attention, you are simply being. This forced introspection can be terrifying at first. Your own insecurities, your regrets, your unfulfilled desires all surface in the quiet. But as you learn to sit with them, without judgment, you begin to find a deeper peace. You discovered in the monastery's archives of vellum scrolls bound in weathered leather, a letter from a novice named Brother Alaric, written in the 9th century, described his initial struggle with silence, his mind a chattering bird trapped in a cage of stone. He wrote of the overwhelming urge to speak, to be heard, to connect. Spoke of how, over time, the silence began to peel back the layers of his ego, revealing a core of resilience and a capacity for contemplation he never knew he possessed. He found solace in the rhythmic chanting of the Psalms, in the slow, deliberate act of copying scripture, quiet communion with God that silence afforded. His words resonated deeply with your own burgeoning experience. Teach you that even in silence, there is a profound connection. You are not alone in this quietude. You are part of a community, together by shared purpose and the ancient rhythms of prayer and labor. The shared meals, though silent, are a testament to this. The simple fare, a hearty lentil soup, a chunk of coarse bread, down ale tastes richer when shared in communal silence. You feel the presence of the other brothers, shared dedication a palpable force. It's a different kind of connection than the boisterous camaraderie of your former life. It is deeper, more profound, forged in shared vulnerability and a mutual striving for something beyond the ephemeral. As the sun climbs higher, more defined light on the stone floor, you feel a sense of calm settling over you. The initial shock has subsided, growing acceptance, even a quiet joy. The rule of Saint Benedict, with its seemingly austere demands, its profound wisdom. It is not about deprivation, but about redirection, stripping away the noise so that the true melody of existence can be heard. Tomorrow, you will begin your apprenticeship in the scriptorium, learning the meticulous art of illuminating manuscripts, a task that requires an even greater degree of patience and silence. The thought doesn't fill you with dread, but with a quiet anticipation. The quiet is becoming your friend. The scent of wood smoke drifts through your consciousness as we begin this journey. The acrid tang of a burning building, but the gentle, fragrant perfume of seasoned oak and birch logs crackling in a hearth. Being your familiar, brightly lit bedroom, but nestled within the rough, hewn stone walls of a dormitory. Beneath you rustles softly with your slightest movement, releasing a faint, earthy aroma, a mix of dried grass and something vaguely animalistic. It's cold, a deep, pervasive chill that seeps into your bones, persistent than any modern draft, your breath visible in the dim, pre-dawn light filtering through a narrow, unglazed window. Forms ephemeral clouds that dissipate almost as quickly as they appear. The silence is profound, broken only by the soft, rhythmic breathing of the other monks sleeping nearby, a communal exhalation that seems to anchor you to this strange, new existence. A dream, though it feels like one, a slow unfolding of a reality you never imagined. The last moments of your previous life, the ping of a notification, a scream, and the jarring transition to this stark, quiet dawn. Absence of noise is the first thing that truly registers a vast quietude that feels both alien and strangely comforting. Your modern ears, accustomed to a cacophony of traffic, chatter, strain to process this profound stillness. It's a quiet that allows the smallest sounds to become significant. Of water somewhere in the cloister, the distant hoot of an owl, the almost imperceptible creak of the ancient timbers above. You pull the coarse wool of your rough-spun tunic tighter, the scratchy fabric a constant, tactile reminder of your new identity. Benedictine way, the Opus Dei, the work of God, and its rhythm is about to become your own. And you discover that the monastic day is not a single entity, but a series of distinct, interwoven moments, dedicated to a specific purpose. It begins long before the sun breaches the horizon. The summons comes not from an alarm clock, sonorous bell, its resonant clang echoing through the stone corridors and rousing you from a sleep that is, paradoxically, and deeper than you've ever known. You rise, your limbs stiff and protesting against the chill, shuffling procession of robed figures heading towards the ecclesia, the chapel. The air inside is even colder, metallic scent of old incense and the lingering dampness of the stone. The candlelight flickers, shadows on the walls adorned with simple, faded frescoes. Here, in the dim glow, you participate in matins, prayer service of the day. Your voice, at first hesitant and unfamiliar, joins the low hum of Gregorian chant. The Latin words, foreign, begin to lodge themselves in your memory, their repetition becoming a form of meditation. It's a communal act, personal, a shared supplication in the heart of the night. Following matins, there is a brief period for private prayer and study, spent with a precious hand, illuminated manuscript. You learn to trace the elegant curves of the Gothic script, the words of the Psalms or the writings of the Church Fathers. The vellum feels impossibly smooth and soft beneath your fingertips, contrast to the rough textures of your clothing and the stone walls. The ink a deep, rich black, oak galls and iron salts, a testament to the craftsmanship of scribes who dedicated their lives to preserving knowledge. In the monastery archives, a collection of delicate vellum pages, pigments used for illumination were often derived from crushed minerals like lapis lazuli for blues and cinnabar for reds, kingly ground and mixed with egg yolk or gum arabic. The weeks pass and you discover the rhythm of lauds, the dawn prayer, first communal meal. This is not a feast but a simple, nourishing repast. Today it is a thick, made from barley and whatever vegetables are in season, perhaps turnips, leeks, and onions, simmered with a bit of salt and dense, baked in the monastery's own oven, its crust firm and its interior chewy. You eat in silence, listening to the gentle murmur of a reading from Rule of Saint Benedict or a passage from the Gospels. Spoons against wooden bowls is the loudest sound, a comforting, domestic melody. Your hands, from the manual labor you've begun to undertake, feel sturdy as you hold your bowl. Pass and you discover the concept of ora et labora, pray and work. This is the cornerstone of Benedictine life, and now structured around this principle. After the morning prayers and breakfast, you join the others in the scriptorium dedicated to copying manuscripts. The air here is thick with the scent of ink and beeswax from the polished wooden desks. The quiet is even more pronounced than in the dormitory, scratching of quills on parchment and the occasional rustle of a page. Task is to meticulously copy a passage from the book of Isaiah, your hand cramping with the unfamiliar effort. To mix your own ink, a process that involves crushing oak galls, soaking them in water, and adding iron sulfate. A misplaced stroke, ink, and the entire page is marred, a small but significant failure in this world, where perfection is sought in every endeavor. A man whose face is etched with the lines of a life lived in contemplation and labor offers a quiet correction, rumbling sound. Patience, brother, he murmurs, his eyes kind. Lord's work is not rushed. It's a small interaction, but it's these moments of shared humanity, spoken in hushed tones, that weave the fabric of your new community. The weeks pass, and you discover the midday prayer, sext, followed by the main meal of the day, served in the refectory. Today, it's a simple stew, perhaps with some dried beans or lentils, and more of that dense, dark bread. Sit at long wooden tables, their faces turned towards the lector who reads aloud, his voice a steady drone. The smell of roasted vegetables and simmering broth fills the air, a welcome warmth against the persistent chill. The intricate carving on the wooden spoons, the worn smoothness of the table surface, each detail speaking of generations of use. You find yourself looking forward to these communal meals, not just for the sustenance, but for the shared silence, collective rhythm of eating and listening. The afternoon is dedicated to further work. Perhaps it's tending the monastery gardens, dark earth cool and yielding beneath your hands. Or perhaps it's helping in the infirmary, pairing herbal poultices for ailing brothers. The monastery is a self-sufficient entity, and every hand is needed to identify different herbs by their scent and texture, the pungent aroma of mint, the subtle sweetness of chamomile. Wool of your habit chafes your skin, a constant low-level irritation that you are slowly learning to ignore. Midst of physical labor, the underlying quiet persists, a peaceful hum that permeates everything. Stark contrast to the constant sensory overload of your former life, shedding of the external world to focus on the internal. This quiet life, you are beginning to understand, is not an absence of experience, but a profound deepening of it. Pass and you realize that the quiet is not just an absence of noise, but a presence of something else entirely, a space for introspection and connection that your old life simply didn't allow. The coming days will bring further revelations about the structure of this monastic existence, particularly the evening hours and the disciplined approach to sleep. Has that one period that captures their imagination completely? This is mine. The grand pronouncements of kings or the clash of armies. For me, it's the quiet, ordered existence of the cloistered life, antithesis of the clamor that defines so much of our modern world. You've seen the movies, read the books. Reality was something else entirely. Subpart 2 plunged you into the dizzying disorientation of waking up in a time not your own. Subpart 3 began to unravel the threadbare tapestry of the Benedictine rule, its emphasis on prayer weaving a new pattern into your consciousness. Subpart 4, with the scent of wood smoke and the murmur of the divine office, rhythm of the monastic day. Now, we delve deeper into the physical heart of this tranquil existence and air that cradle this quietest life ever. The humble monastery setting is not a place of grand pronouncements, but of hushed reverence and enduring strength. Imagine stone, cool and unyielding beneath your bare feet by centuries of shuffling sandals and the ceaseless passage of time. You find yourself within the scriptorium, dedicated to the sacred art of copying manuscripts. The air here is thick with the sweet, earthy scent of dried ink and parchment, far more intoxicating than any modern cologne. Sunlight filtered through narrow, arched windows glazed with thick, uneven glass in dusty shafts, illuminating the meticulous work of your brethren. The architecture is functional, profound beauty born of purpose. Thick, load-bearing walls of roughly hewn stone, quarried from the very land the monastery occupies, rise to support heavy timbered roofs. The arches, whether Romanesque or the burgeoning Gothic style, are not merely decorative, but structural necessities, and creating a sense of soaring space without the need for excessive ornamentation. Perspective shifts when you consider the sounds that permeate this existence. Gone are the blaring sirens, chatter of mobile phones, the rumble of internal combustion engines. Here, the dominant sound is the gentle rustle of parchment as pages are turned, the scratch of quill pens on vellum, the low, resonant hum of Gregorian chant emanating from the chapel. Even the wind, when it sighs through the cloister garth, seems but secrets of the ages. You hear the distant clang of a bell marking the hours for prayer, a sound that, initially jarring, begins to feel like an anchor in the flow of existence. The rhythmic chipping of a stonemason's hammer from a distant renovation, murmur of Latin prayers during matins, the soft thud of a wooden door closing. These are the sonic textures of your new reality. Equally evocative, beyond the scriptorium's ink and parchment, was the comforting aroma of freshly baked bread, often made from coarse dark rye or barley flour. The savory scent of a simple stew, perhaps lentils, root vegetables, or a small portion of salted fish. Season and the day's observance. The cloister garden, meticulously tended by the lay brothers, exudes the clean fragrance of herbs, rosemary, thyme, mint used for both culinary and medicinal purposes. In the infirmary, a faint of boiled herbs and poultices hangs in the air, a reminder of the fragility of the human body. Wool of your habit carries a faint, earthy scent, a testament to its natural origins. Your hands, to the smooth plastic of a keyboard, now grip a goose quill, its tip carefully sharpened. The ink, galls and iron salts is a deep, rich black. You are tasked with illuminating a page of the Gospels, a process that requires immense patience and steady hands. The pigments, ground from minerals and plants. Lazuli for the precious ultramarine blue. Cinnabar for a fiery red, malachite for a verdant green. Of a miniature, a lion's mane or a saint's halo demands hours of focused concentration. This is not mere writing. It is an act of devotion, a way to glorify God through artistic expression. Your perspective shifts when you encounter Brother Thomas. Face is a roadmap of devotion and quiet contemplation. He is older, his beard streaked with grey, his eyes holding a depth of understanding that humbles you. Staring at the intricate interlace patterns adorning the capital letter I of an illuminated initial. A thing of beauty, "Brother," he murmurs, his voice a gentle rumble, each stroke a prayer, each color a testament to the divine. You nod. You want to ask him about his life, about the world before this, but the words catch in your throat. Instead, you ask, "Do you achieve such precision, Brother Thomas?" He smiles, a rare but warm expression, "With patience, brother, that this work is not for our own glory, but for his. We are but instruments." I learned this art from Brother Anselm, from Brother Benedict, and so it has been for generations. Here at St. Jude's Abbey, in the year of our Lord 872, he pauses, dipping his quill delicately. The key is to understand the flow of the ink and to quiet the mind. The mind is like a restless stream. Be calm to see that true reflection that I discovered in the archives as part of my own historical research often underwent rigorous training, starting with basic lettering and gradually progressing to more complex illumination. The quality of the parchment was paramount. Sheepskin vellum was generally preferred for its smoothness and durability. Calfskin A parchment was also used. The cost of the materials alone, the inks, the pigments, these manuscripts, incredibly valuable, often worth more than the scribe's annual upkeep. Later, in the communal dormitory, high-ceilinged room with simple straw-filled mattresses laid out on wooden frames, you find yourself unable to sleep. Profound, broken only by the faint moonlight filtering through the high windows. The air is cool, lingering scent of beeswax from the candles extinguished hours ago. You hear the soft snores of your fellow monks, symphony of slumber. You recall a conversation earlier that day with Brother Michael, a younger monk who had entered the order after a devastating plague swept through his village. "Did you never fear losing touch with the world, Brother Michael?" you had asked him, your voice barely a whisper, in the bustling kitchen. He was scraping vegetable peels with a practiced hand. He looked up, his brow furrowed slightly. Fear. Perhaps at first. The world outside, it is full of such uncertainty, such suffering. Here, there is order, there is purpose, and there is peace. Entire family. This is a different kind of life, yes, but it is a life of solace. And, he added, a shy smile touching his lips, the bread here is far better than what we had in the village. This quietude, removal from the often frenzied pace of the secular world is the core of the monastic appeal, contrast to the constant connectivity and information overload of the 21st century. Moments of supposed rest are often punctuated by digital notifications. Here, the silence is not an absence of sound, a presence of something deeper, a space for introspection and connection to something beyond the material. Perspective shifts when you consider the stark simplicity of your surroundings. Your habit, spun wool tunic cinched with a rope belt, is the only garment you wear, aside from a simple linen undertunic. It's scratchy against your skin, a constant tactile reminder of your new identity. The food, as mentioned, is plain but nourishing. Sustain the body for prayer and labor, not to indulge the senses. Even the architecture, while sturdy and dignified, the ostentatious decoration found in secular buildings of the era. Every element serves a purpose, tributing to the overall atmosphere of humility and devotion. As you lie there, listening to the gentle breathing of your brothers, a sense of calm begins to settle over you. The initial shock of your temporal displacement is slowly giving way to an acceptance of this new reality. The rhythm of the monastic day, alien, is becoming familiar, almost comforting. The quiet, the order, the shared purpose, they are slowly, inexorably seeping into your very being. Tomorrow, the bells will ring again, calling you to prayer, to work, to contemplation. And you will rise, the quietest life ever. The the subtle scent of dried herbs from the infirmary, carried on a draught from an open window. Through the dormitory, a gentle lullaby. The archaeological evidence tells us stories that Hollywood never bothered to explore, in stone and whispered in faded parchment. It's not the dramatic battles or the grand pronouncements of kings that truly reveal the texture of life in the early Middle Ages, but the quiet persistence of communities, the rhythmic pulse of their daily existence. Today, we delve into the heart of that quiet, exploring the silent tapestry woven by the other monks who share your newfound cloistered existence. Is one of profound stillness. The Benedictine rule, which you've begun to internalize, as discussed in Part 3, not just your actions, but the very rhythm of your being. Ave ora et labora, prayer and work, a mantra that has replaced the cacophony of your former life. You wake before dawn, chill of the stone floor seeping through your thin woolen tunic. The air, even inside the dormitory, carries the faint, earthy scent of damp stone straw and the lingering aroma of beeswax from the previous night's candles. Slowly but surely, around you begin to resolve from the blurry figures of your initial disorientation. They are men of varied ages, by the perpetual dim light of the scriptorium and the refectory. Their hands, from labor or stained with ink, move with practiced grace. Observe them during the hours of communal prayer in the ecclesia, their voices rising in unison, a single, resonant wave of devotion. But it is in the shared silence of other tasks that their individuality, or rather shared humanity within this chosen silence, truly emerges. Take Brother Thomas, for instance. He is older, his beard a streaky grey, his movements deliberate and slow. You see him most often in the herb garden, his gnarled fingers gently tending to the rows of lavender and rosemary. The scent of these herbs, crushed underfoot as you pass, mingles with the damp earth, a perpetual perfume of healing and sustenance. He rarely speaks, but his eyes, a startlingly clear blue, with a quiet nod of acknowledgement. Today, as you help with the weeding, a single bloomed amidst the greens. Brother Thomas, with a faint smile that crinkles the corners of his eyes, and offers it to you. The gesture, devoid of words, speaks volumes about shared beauty and unspoken understanding. You accept it, the delicate petals cool against your palm, and place it in the folds of your cowl. Then there is Brother Michael, perhaps in his late teens. His hands, though, are surprisingly strong and steady as he works in the carpenter's shop. Clean scent of freshly cut oak fills the air, a stark contrast to the musty odor of the library. You've watched him meticulously shaping wood for a new lectern, his brow furrowed in concentration. Today, tasked with assisting him, fetching tools and holding pieces steady, he drops a small chisel, and before you can react, already reaching for it, his movements economical. As you hand him a different tool, your fingers brush. His skin is rough by splinters and the occasional nick, but his touch is surprisingly gentle. He looks up, a flicker of surprise in his eyes, as a quick, almost shy nod before returning to his work. You notice he wears a rough, spun woolen tunic, the color of undyed wool, leather belt. The sound of his hammer, a steady, rhythmic thud, becomes a comforting backdrop to your own thoughts. Brother Bernard, the infirmarian, his presence is a quiet reassurance. You've seen him moving through the cloister, a small pouch of herbs and bandages at his side. His face is perpetually serene, even when tending to the sick. The scent of medicinal herbs, chamomile, mint, and something sharp and vaguely antiseptic clings to him. Today, you witness him ministering to Brother Alaric, who has a persistent cough. Hands are steady as he wraps a poultice around Alaric's chest, his murmurs soft and soothing. Alaric's rasping breaths. You catch a glimpse of a worn wooden crucifix that Bernard wears around his neck. Its surface smooth from countless touches. He glances at you as you pass, a silent question in his eyes. Do you need anything? You shake your head, but the quiet concern in his gaze is a palpable thing. These interactions, though silent, the threads that bind your community. They are not the boisterous camaraderie of a tavern or the animated discussions of a marketplace. Kind of connection, forged in shared purpose, in the quiet observation of each other's devotion and labor. Read the subtle cues, the slight tilt of a head, the angle of a clasped hand, the duration of a shared glance, presence of mutual respect. I discovered in the archives of St. Gall, a monastery founded in 719 AD. Structure of monastic life was designed to foster this kind of silent, communal harmony. The emphasis on shared meals, prayer and shared work was not just about efficiency, but about creating a spiritual unity. The Benedictine rule, codified by Saint Nerja in the 6th century, emphasizes obedience, humility, and manual labor. Life lived in constant awareness of God and community. It's a stark contrast to our modern, individualized world, where constant communication and outward expression are often valued above all else. Here, itself is a form of communication, a space for introspection and for recognizing the divine in the mundane. The quietest life ever, where the rustle of your woolen habit as you move, the soft scrape of a quill on parchment, the distant bleating of sheep in the fields become the dominant sounds. You are learning to appreciate this stillness, to find a strange comfort in its embrace. You realize that the absence of constant chatter doesn't mean an absence of connection, rather a deepening of it, a more profound understanding of the shared human experience. As the sun begins its slow descent, shadows across the courtyard, you find yourself looking forward to the Vespers service. The shared silence in the church, sacred chants, will be a familiar balm. You wonder what new silent observations you will make tomorrow. Subtle nuances of this quiet life will reveal themselves. The path ahead, though silent, promises to be rich with discovery into the very heart of contemplative existence. What it would feel like to truly experience life in this distant time, not as an observer through dusty tomes, breathing the very air, feeling the rough wool against my skin, the scent of wood smoke so prevalent in Subpart 4, a constant, almost comforting presence, mingling with the damp, earthy aroma of the stone walls and the faint of beeswax candles. Subpart 5 painted a picture of the physical shell of this existence, the soaring arches, courtyards, the scriptorium bathed in pale northern light. Subpart 6 introduced the silent tapestry of the other inhabitants, interwoven with yours in a symphony of unspoken understanding. But now, as you settle into the rhythm, the true challenge emerges: external pressures, but from the vast, echoing expanse of your own mind, now stripped of the constant hum of modern distraction, merely an absence of noise. It is a palpable entity, a heavy blanket that presses in from all sides. You wake not to an alarm, but to the gentle, insistent nudge of the first rays of dawn filtering through the narrow window of your cell. The stone floor is shockingly cold beneath your bare feet, a stark contrast to the thin, scratchy wool of your habit. You can hear the soft rustle of your own movements, the faint creak of the wooden cot, the distant, imperceptible murmur of the communal dormitory as others stir. These sounds, so minuscule in the cacophony of your former life, amplified, each one a distinct event in the stillness. Your internal monologue, however, is the true battlefield. Barrage of emails, notifications, traffic noise, and ambient conversations, your thoughts, once a relatively controlled stream, begin to eddy and swirl. They are unbidden, relentless, replaying conversations from years ago, dissecting perceived slights, cataloging anxieties that grand scheme of this monastic existence are utterly insignificant. The silence, intended to foster contemplation, serves to illuminate the sheer volume of mental clutter you've accumulated, stepping into a perfectly silent room after years of living next to a busy highway. External noise makes the internal noise deafening. You rise, pulling on the familiar, coarse wool of your tunic and cowl. The rough texture is a constant reminder of the physical realities of this era. You can feel the threads prickling your skin, a sensation you've grown accustomed to, yet it still provides a grounding anchor. Walls of your cell are cool and damp to the touch, smelling faintly of mildew and age. You can see the subtle variations in the stone. The marks left by the mason's tools centuries ago comes from the sliver of dawn pushing through the window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Your hands, to the smooth surfaces of keyboards and touchscreens, now feel clumsy as you tie the cord of your habit. Soft thudge of your own heartbeat, a steady, insistent rhythm against the profound stillness. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of old parchment and the lingering aroma of the previous night's frugal supper, a thick bread and a handful of dried peas. You can almost taste the grainy texture of the bread on your tongue, sensation that highlights the stark simplicity of your diet. Your understanding deepens as you realize the true nature of this imposed quiet. It's not just about prayer and contemplation, confronting the unvarnished self without the constant external stimuli to distract or define you. You are forced to look inward. This is a terrifying prospect. I recall reading a passage in a recovered fragment from the Abbey of St. Albans, 80, where Abbot Geoffrey lamented the difficulty some of the younger brothers had in adapting to the profound stillness, describing it as a mirror reflecting the soul's disquiet. This resonates deeply with your current struggle. Your cell towards the chapter house, your footsteps echoing softly on the flagstone floor, with further cells, each a small, austere box designed for solitude. You can hear the faint, rhythmic breathing of the monks sleeping, a collective sigh of slumber that underscores the shared nature of this silent existence. The air here is even cooler, carrying the distinct scent of old beeswax and the faint metallic tang of incense that never quite dissipates. Smoothness of the stone, where countless hands have brushed against it over the centuries. As you approach the chapter house, you see Brother Thomas, his gaunt face etched with the lines of age and devotion, seated on the stone bench. His hands, gnarled and calloused, rest on his lap. Soft rustle of his habit as he shifts his weight. He offers you a faint nod, his eyes the color of faded denim. For a fleeting moment, there are no words exchanged. The acknowledgement is purely gestural, affirmation of shared purpose. You can feel the subtle warmth radiating from the stone bench as you sit beside him. Texture of the wool of your habit, a familiar comfort. The chapter house itself is a study in controlled austerity. Its ceiling soars above, its dark timbers lost in shadow. The walls are bare stone, punctuated by narrow windows that cast long ethereal shafts of light onto the floor. The air here is thick with the scent of aged wood and the faint, dried herbs scattered on the floor to mask the inevitable odors of a communal living space. Intricate knotwork carved into the capitals of the pillars, a testament to the skill of artisans long departed. The abbot, a man whose presence commands a quiet respect, enters and takes his place at the head of the assembly, His face is serene, deliberate. He holds a single, worn parchment in his hands. The silence in the chapter house deepens, a palpable anticipation. The faint scratching of a quill on parchment from a distant cell, a lone sound in the vast quiet. The abbot begins, his voice a low, resonant rumble that seems to vibrate through the very stones of the building. It's not a loud voice, but it carries, filling the space without effort. Today, we reflect on the virtue of patience. The world outside our walls rushes and clamors, but here, we cultivate a different kind of strength, a strength born not of outward force, but of inward stillness. He pauses, his gaze sweeping across the faces of the assembled monks. Soft intake of breath from Brother Bartholomew to your left, his brow furrowed in thought. Consider, the abbot continues, his voice softening, the slow growth of the oak or the steady erosion of the mountain by the winds of patience. We are called to embrace the silence not as an emptiness, but as a space for God to reveal himself. The chatter of the world is a veil. When that veil is lifted, we are left with our true selves and with him. He turns the parchment. Illuminated letter, magnificent, a P for patience. You can see the vibrant pigments, gold leaf that still catches the faint light. Standing deepens as you recognize the profound psychological shift required. It's not about doing nothing, but about being present in the quiet and allowing the internal noise to gradually subside, replaced by a deeper, more purposeful awareness. Is the true discipline the real challenge? The external silence is merely the catalyst for the internal transformation. Monologue, while still present, begins to feel less like a chaotic storm and more like a river, its currents still strong. Discernible direction. You find yourself observing your own thoughts rather than being swept away by them. Recurring themes, the anxieties that surface repeatedly, you can almost label them, acknowledge their presence, and then them drift past like clouds across the sky. You find yourself looking forward to the communal prayer, just for the spiritual nourishment, but for the structured silence it provides. The rhythmic chanting, shared moments of kneeling and standing create a framework that helps to contain the untamed wilderness of your own mind. Beeswax candles, now burning steadily in their holders, fills your nostrils, a warm, comforting aroma that anchors you in the present moment. As the chapter meeting concludes, soft shuffling of feet as the monks rise. Brother Thomas offers you another silent nod, a smile playing on his lips. You can feel the lingering warmth of the stone bench beneath you, connection to the generations who have sat here before. The abbot gathers his parchment, his movements economical and precise, still hums with the quiet intensity of the shared reflection. You return to your cell, impressive and more expectant. The struggle is far from over, but a new understanding has dawned. Quiet is not an enemy to be endured, but a partner in a profound internal journey. The challenge of utter quiet is, in essence, truly meeting yourself. The gentle rhythm of the day continues, each task, small herb garden, to assisting in the scriptorium, a silent meditation. Texture of the vellum beneath your fingertips as you prepare it for illumination. Earthy scent of the ink, a familiar companion. The day progresses with a slow, deliberate grace, a stark contrast to the frantic pace of your former existence. The sun's arc across the sky, visible through the narrow windows, passage of time with a quiet inevitability. As evening approaches and the Vespers bell tolls its melancholic call, ready feel the subtle shift, the anticipation of the deeper quiet that will descend with the night. into the heart of silence has truly begun, and the path ahead, though still challenging, is starting to reveal its profound, transformative potential. As you settle in tonight, let me transport you to a world both alien and achingly familiar. A world where the cacophony of modernity fades into a profound, almost unnerving stillness you've adjusted to a degree of constant chatter, the blare of engines, the digital hum that now permeates your every waking moment. It's a far cry from immersion. Part 7 left you grappling with the sheer quiet, the vast, echoing silence of monastic life, a silence that pressed in on you, demanding more than just passive acceptance. It demanded participation. The world around you evolves, dramatic upheaval, but with the slow, inexorable turning of the seasons. Today, of your existence is dictated by the sun's arc and the needs of the land. You are no longer merely an observer. In this cloistered existence, you are Brother Thomas, a name bestowed upon you in a simple, guttural ceremony weeks ago, feels both foreign and increasingly, irrevocably yours. Your day begins before the first hint of dawn, buzz of an alarm, but to the soft, insistent chime of the bell from the scriptorium tower. The air in your small cell, hewn stone, is cool and damp, carrying the faint, earthy scent of straw and drying herbs. You rise from your pallet, a fare of woven reeds and a coarse wool blanket, the rough fibers scratching against your skin. You pull on your tunic, undyed wool, scratchy and heavy, its seams coarse against your shoulders. The simple leather belt cinches it at your waist. Hewn sandals feel stiff and unforgiving on your bare feet. Stepping out into the pre-dawn chill, silent procession of your brothers moving towards the refectory. The stone floor is cold beneath your sandals, with the lingering aroma of yesterday's meager supper and the ever-present scent of beeswax and incense. You can feel the dampness seeping through the porous stone walls, a constant reminder of the unyielding earth that cradles this sanctuary. Soft scuffing of sandals, the rustle of coarse wool, and the occasional, almost imperceptible sigh. In the refectory, wooden table stretches before you, worn smooth by centuries of use. Candlelight casts dancing shadows on the faces of your fellow monks, each one a study in weathered devotion. Is a thick dark bread, dense and chewy, accompanied by a small bowl of pottage, a simple gruel of oats and water, with a handful of leeks gathered from the monastery's own gardens. The taste is bland, almost metallic, the gnawing emptiness in your stomach. As you eat, you observe Brother Michael with the lines of age and contemplation, his hands gnarled like ancient roots, moving with deliberate grace as he breaks his bread. He catches your eye and offers a fleeting, almost imperceptible nod, a silent acknowledgement of shared existence. After the morning prayers, the real work begins. The monastic life, as you are swiftly learning, is far from a romanticized image of monks perpetually lost in contemplation, is a gross simplification. Here in Saintine, nestled in the rolling hills of Northumbria, circa 1185 AD, your days are filled with manual labor, foundation of their self-sufficiency. Today's task is in the monastery's fields, where the autumn harvest is in full swing, is crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. The sky is a pale, washed-out grey, promising a cool, if not entirely unpleasant day. You join a line of brothers, each armed with a sickle, their faces grimly determined, tall and golden, heavy with grain, and the work is backbreaking. You swing the sickle, the strain in your arms and shoulders, the rough fibers of the straw scraping against your skin. The repetitive motion is hypnotic, that gradually pulls you into the present moment, silencing the internal chatter that still at times threatens to overwhelm you. Brother Benedict, a younger monk with a perpetually earnest expression, works beside you, longer than you, and offers quiet guidance. "Keep your back straight, Brother Thomas," he murmurs, low and steady. "Bend your knees, it saves your spine." His advice is practical, born of experience. You try to emulate his posture, to find a more efficient way to move, to conserve your energy. You notice the way his hands, though calloused, certain dexterity, a practiced efficiency. He gestures towards the sky. "The rains are coming soon. We must get this in before then." As you toil, you can feel the subtle shifts in the ground beneath your feet, the soft give of the soil, sharp jab of a buried stone. The sun, when it finally breaks through the clouds, offers a welcome warmth, but also intensifies the physical exertion. Sweat trickles down your brow, stinging your eyes. The dryness in your throat becomes a constant companion. You pause to drink from a water skin, cool and tasting faintly of leather, a welcome relief. Later, you are assigned to the scriptorium, a vast chamber where the true treasures of the abbey are preserved. The air here is warmer, filled with the sweet of parchment and ink. Sunlight streams through the tall, arched windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Tasked with preparing the vellum for copying, this involves scraping away any remaining flesh and hair with a sharp lunellum-shaped knife. The vellum is stretched taut on wooden frames, and the scraping must be done with meticulous care. Too much pressure, tearing the delicate material. Too little, and the surface will remain uneven, unsuitable for the scribe's pen. The head scribe, a man whose very presence exudes an aura of learned calm, oversees your work, his fingers long and slender, an almost ethereal grace as he demonstrates the proper technique. "Each stroke must be even, Brother Thomas," he explains, a soft murmur that seems to absorb the ambient noise. "The surface must be smooth as a lake's reflection to receive the word of God." He shows you how to use a pumice stone to further refine the surface, creating a fine dust that you must then carefully brush away. I discovered in archives at the British Library, my own research into monastic life, that the preparation of vellum was an incredibly labor-intensive process to prepare a single calfskin. The quality of the parchment directly impacted the beauty and longevity of the manuscripts. Just scraping animal hides, you are participating in the creation of eternal knowledge. The contrast between the physical exertion in the fields and the delicate precision required in the scriptorium is stark, essential to the functioning of this self-contained world. You feel the ache in your muscles from the morning's labor that makes the fine motor control required for the vellum preparation a challenge. Your hands' grip of the sickle feel clumsy and imprecise. Brother Stephen notices your struggle. "Do not rush, Thomas," he advises gently. "The work demands patience. Think of the words that will eventually fill this space, the devotion of those who will read them." He shares a story about a particularly challenging manuscript, illuminated psalter commissioned by a wealthy patron, where the vellum itself was so fine it was almost translucent. Pes spent not just writing, but also mixing pigments from ground minerals and plants, creating vibrant reds from cinnabar, laspis lazuli, and rich greens from verdigris. He mentions the meticulous process of gilding. Thin sheets of gold leaf were applied with extreme care, creating halos and decorative borders that seem to glow with an inner light. Just labor, it is artistry, a devotion expressed through material transformation. As the day draws to a close, the setting sun paints the sky in hues of orange and purple, casting long shadows across the monastery courtyard. The air grows cooler. The scent of wood smoke, now from the kitchens preparing the evening meal, drifts on the breeze. You feel a profound weariness, a deep bone marrow exhaustion, but also a quiet sense of accomplishment. You have contributed, in your small way, sustenance and the spiritual preservation of this community. You join the evening prayers. The chanted psalms, a low, resonant hum that fills the abbey church. The flickering candles cast a warm, golden glow on the ancient stone walls. The scent of incense hangs heavy in the air. As you kneel, the rough wool of your habit presses against your knees. Sense of peace settle over you. The silence, once so intimidating, now feels like a comforting embrace. Your hands, smelling of ink and vellum, rest on the worn stone floor. You realize that this experience, so different from your own, is not just about observing history, but about feeling it. Understanding the sweat on your brow, the ache in your muscles, the quiet satisfaction of a task completed. The world around you evolves, and as you prepare to rest, a thought lingers. The immense effort required to preserve knowledge, to simply exist in this era, lays bare the sheer fragility and resilience of human endeavor. Tomorrow, you will rise again, will continue, a testament to a life lived in quiet dedication. The quietest life, perhaps, but one filled with a depth of purpose you are only beginning to comprehend. Close your eyes and transport yourself to a time when life moved at a completely different rhythm, waking not to the jarring cacophony of alarms or traffic, but to the soft, diffused light filtering through a narrow glass window. The air, cool and carrying the faint, earthy scent of damp stone and drying herbs, is utterly still. Wool tunic, woven from the rough wool of sheep grazing on the monastery's own lands, feels scratchy against your skin, grounding reminder of your new existence. You are Brother Thomas, a monk in the Abbey of St. Jude, nestled in the verdant, what will one day be France in the year of our Lord World 2047. The silence here is not an absence of sound, but a presence. It's a palpable thing, a thick blanket woven from the rustle of your own breath, the distant chirping of unseen birds in the cloister garden, and the faint, imperceptible murmur of prayers from other brothers already at their devotions. Has turned to days as the initial shock of this new reality begins to recede, replaced by a burgeoning, quiet understanding. The physical labor you've been undertaking, the mending of nets for the monastery's meager fish pond, the herb garden, where potent remedies are coaxed from the soil, sweeping of flagstone floors, slick with dew or spilled water, has begun to reshape not just your body, but your mind. Once accustomed to the smooth, cool surface of a keyboard or the crisp pages of a book, are now callosed and stained with earth. After a day spent harvesting root vegetables is a familiar companion, throb that paradoxically brings a sense of deep satisfaction. You are doing something. The collective rhythm of the Abbey, a stark contrast to the often abstract intellectual pursuits of your former life. You remember your first attempts at communal prayer, seeing self-consciousness as you tried to mimic the quiet devotion of the older monks. Your mind, a restless torrent of thoughts and anxieties, refused to be still. The chanting, while beautiful, felt like a foreign language. Latin phrases a constant reminder of your ignorance. Catch yourself dwelling on the mundane, the gnawing hunger in your stomach, the itch of a flea, thought of a life left behind. It was Brother Anselm, his face a roadmap of gentle wrinkles and his eyes holding the serene depth of a still lake, who first offered guidance. Is like a wild bird, Brother Thomas, he'd said, his voice a low, that seemed to vibrate through the very stones of the scriptorium. You were meticulously copying a passage from the Psalms, scratching softly against the vellum. It flits from branch to branch, never settling. Do not fight its nature. Simply guide it back to the source. Each time it wanders, offer a silent prayer of thanks for its return. This simple counsel, one of your shared duties of illuminating manuscripts, a task that demanded an almost agonizing precision, mixing of pigments from ground minerals and precious stones. The delicate strokes of gold leaf proved to be a turning point. Embrace the stillness, not as an emptiness to be filled, but as a sacred space to be inhabited. Notice the nuances within the silence, the soft creak of the wooden stalls in the chapel, of beeswax from the candles, the subtle shift in the quality of light as the sun tracked its course across the sky. Discovered in the Abbey's small, dusty library, a treasure trove of theological treatises, illuminated Bibles, and philosophical works. Afternoon, while cataloguing a recent acquisition, a beautifully bound copy of Augustine's Confessions. From a neighboring bishop, you stumbled upon a passage that resonated deeply. You have made us for yourself, O Lord, is restless until it rests in you. The words, penned centuries ago, felt as if they were written for you. Restless spirit. This was not about escaping the world, you realized, but about finding God within it. Within the profound quiet of monastic life, the communal meals taken in the refectory under the watchful gaze of Brother Benedict were another arena for this deepening practice. The clatter of wooden bowls and spoons, the rhythmic chewing, sighs of contentment or perhaps discomfort, all were part of the tapestry of sound. You ate simple fare, thick, dark bread, seasonal vegetables, and sometimes, if you were fortunate, a piece of salted fish. The taste was earthy, unadorned, a far cry from the complex flavors you'd once taken for granted. During these meals, Brother would read aloud from scripture or the lives of saints, his voice a steady drone that filled the hall. Yourself listening not just to the words, but to the rhythm, the cadence, the very act of speaking them in this hallowed space. After Vespers, as you were helping Brother Silas, a wizened old monk who had entered the abbey as a boy, chapel's silver chalices, he shared a story. My father, he began, his voice raspy with age, was a farmer, toil under the sun and the rain. But every morning, before the first hint of dawn, he would go out to the fields, simply stand there, and he would pray, not with words, mind you, but with his heart. It was the only way he could truly hear God's voice amidst the clamour of his own life. Silas paused, polishing a particularly intricate part of the chalice. This quiet Brother Thomas, he continued, his gaze meeting yours, as a gift us to hear the whispers of the divine, drowned out by the noise of the world. You began to understand that this quietest life ever was not about emptiness, fullness. It was about stripping away the extraneous, the superficial, to reveal the profound, the eternal. External stimulation forced you inward to confront your own thoughts, your own desires, your own fears. It was a challenging, often uncomfortable process, but it was also liberating. You were learning to find a deep wellspring of peace within yourself, dependent on external circumstances. The rough texture of the wooden prayer bench beneath your knees, the cool feel of the prayer beads as they slipped through your fingers, scent of incense that clung to the air in the chapel. These sensory details were no longer distractions, but anchors, due in the present moment, in the sacred ritual of your new existence. You were discovering a different kind of power, a silent, strength that was far more enduring than any external validation. Your internal monologue, once a chaotic storm, slowly beginning to find a rhythm, a quiet hum of devotion. You were starting to understand that in this profound quiet, you were not losing yourself, but finding a deeper, truer version of who you were meant to be. As the evening draws to a close, in your cell cast long, dancing shadows on the stone walls, the faint, rhythmic sound of Brother Benedict's recitation of the divine office drifts through the thick oak door. You feel a sense of calm settling over you, a quiet anticipation for the dawn, and for the continued journey into the heart of this profound silence. Tomorrow, you will continue to explore the communal life of the Abbey, the shared experiences that bind these men together in their pursuit of the divine. The primary sources reveal details that will change how you see this entire period. While we often imagine the monastic life as a cloistered existence, entirely removed from the world, the reality was far more nuanced. Stone walls of the Abbey of Saint Gartempe later become renowned for its breathtaking Romanesque frescoes, glimpses of the outside world, the secular world. You, as our hypothetical monk, Brother Thomas, would not be entirely untouched by its currents. Stones of your dwelling, the parchment you might prepare, the food you eat, all of it originates from that bustling, chaotic realm beyond the Abbey gates. Day by day, you learn that the quietude you sought is not an absolute void, but a carefully curated stillness. Your hands, once accustomed to the smooth, cool surfaces of modern technology, texture and ache from the rough texture of the wool you spin. The coarse tunic, woven from sheep's wool, scratches against your skin, level irritation that you are slowly learning to ignore. The scent of wood smoke and damp earth, different from the sterilized air of your former life, now fills your nostrils as a persistent reminder of the tangible world. This morning, of the stone floor seeps through your thin sandals as you rise for matins. In the dormitory is thick with the collective breath of sleeping men, a gentle, rhythmic sound that is almost comforting. Filtering through the narrow, arched windows is a pale grey, promising a day of continued routine. After the communal prayers, baking bread, a simple but deeply satisfying aroma wafts from the refectory. You sit at the long wooden table, grain of the wood pressing into your forearms. Your fellow monks, their faces etched with the discipline of their calling. Silent meal, their eyes downcast. Brother John, a man whose hands are permanently stained with ink from his work in the scriptorium, nods to you as he passes the trencher of pottage. His expression is kind, a silent acknowledgement of your shared journey. Later, as you assist Brother Anselm in the infirmary, suffering from a lingering cough, a rare event occurs. A small procession, faint jingle of bells and the murmur of voices passes by the infirmary window, a less frequented courtyard. It is a group of pilgrims, their cloaks travel worn and dusty, mixture of weariness and hopeful anticipation. They are on their way to a distant shrine, a pilgrimage that will take weeks, months to complete. You catch a fleeting glimpse of a woman's face as she looks up at the Abbey's towering bell tower, a stark contrast to the downcast gazes within. The faint sound of a lute breeze momentarily pierces the Abbey's usual hush. It is a sound of the world outside, of music played not for divine praise but for human pleasure. Fleeting vision sparks a flicker of something within you, not necessarily longing, a profound awareness of the lives being lived beyond these hallowed walls. You remember the vibrant marketplaces of your past, cacophony of sounds, the kaleidoscope of colors, the sheer press of humanity. Here life is a slow, deliberate unfolding, a repetition of the last, governed by the monastic rule. Yet the sight of those pilgrims, their faces turned towards a distant goal, reminds you that even within this sanctuary, the echoes of the secular world can reach. You recall a passage from a manuscript you helped to copy last week, a chronicle detailing the abbey's history. It spoke of a visit from a local lord in the year 1147, accompanied by his retinue seeking counsel from the abbot. Chronicle described the richness of their attire, the clang of their armor, the boisterous laughter that temporarily disrupted the abbey's sacred silence. It was a reminder that the abbey, while physically apart, was not entirely immune to the political and social currents of the age. Later, you find yourself in the scriptorium with the scent of beeswax and aged parchment. Brother Michael, the master scribe, is painstakingly illuminating a manuscript in concentration. The vibrant blues and reds of the pigments are a stark contrast to the muted tones of your monastic robes. His spectacles perched precariously on his nose, a moment of distraction, Brother Thomas. He asks, his voice a low rumble. The world outside has a way of intruding, does it not? Indeed, Brother Michael, you reply, your voice softer than you intend. I saw pilgrims passing today. They carried the scent of the road with them. He chuckles, a dry, rustling sound. The road. A different kind of journey, wouldn't you say? We, too, are on a journey, albeit one of the spirit. But it is good to remember that other paths exist, that other lives are lived. Why we have chosen this one. He dips his quill into the inkpot, the scratching sound a familiar rhythm. This passage here, he gestures to the illuminated letter he is working on, describes the founding of the abbey. It was a time of great upheaval, with raids from Norman lords and the lingering fear of the plague, which had swept through the region just decades before. Yet, even then, the desire for peace and devotion persisted. You nod, falling on the intricate detail of the illuminated initial. It's a world away from the stark simplicity of your new life, or the vibrant color and intricate artistry born from the hands of men who lived and breathed the secular world. The contrast is striking. Your former life, with its constant barrage of information and stimuli, almost impossibly loud and chaotic compared to the measured quietude you are experiencing, is not an absence of sound, but a redirection of it, a focus on the subtle symphony of communal life, prayer, and work. To a close, and you prepare for Vespers. The setting sun casts long shadows across the cloister garth. The air grows cooler, and the scent of lavender, planted by the monks for its medicinal properties, becomes more pronounced. Distant bleating of sheep from the abbey's fields, a gentle sound that blends with the chirping of crickets. Outside, with its bustling towns and its ever-present human dramas, feels very far away indeed. Yet, the memory of the pilgrims, the sound of the lute, and the words of Brother Michael linger, subtle reminder of the vast tapestry of existence that continues beyond the abbey's stone embrace. You realize that even in this profound quiet, you are still a part of something larger, a ripple in the pond of human experience. Assigned to help Brother Benedict in the abbey's garden, he is an older monk, his hands gnarled and earth-stained, slow but deliberate. He shows you how to tend the herbs, simple vegetable plots that provide sustenance for the community. As you work side by side, the sun warming your back, don't journey to the abbey. I was a farmer, you see, he says, his voice raspy, lived in a small village not far from here. Life was hard but honest. Then the fever took my wife and children. The abbey offered solace. It offered a different kind of life, a life dedicated to something more. He pauses, pulling a stumbling weed from the earth. Sometimes, when the wind blows just right, hear the laughter of my son. but then I hear the bells and I remember where I am. You feel a pang of shared understanding, of the sacrifices made, the lives left behind for this chosen path, and growing things fills your senses, a grounding, earthy perfume. Tomorrow, you will begin assisting Brother Alaric in the scriptorium, learning the ancient art of calligraphy. It is a different kind of stillness, meticulous quietude that will demand your complete attention, stepping through time into a world that operated by entirely different rules. World where the claimer of modern existence was not just absent but actively suppressed. You find yourself within the stone embrace of a Benedictine abbey, perhaps St. Albans in Hertfordshire, circa 1150 AD. The air carries the faint, persistent scent of beeswax, old parchment, and the earthy aroma of the nearby vegetable gardens. Your coarse wool tunic, a scratchy yet strangely comforting presence against your skin, to the silks and synthetics of your former life. The silence you anticipated, the profound quiet that drew you to this hypothetical existence, is not an empty void. Instead, canvas upon which your own mind begins to paint, often with startling clarity, the absence of external noise, the gentle rustle of your habit, the distant murmur of plain song from the chapel, of your own bare feet on the flagstone floor. These are the only anchors to the external world. Within the echoing chambers of your skull, a different kind of symphony begins. You wake before dawn, your straw-filled palate. The only light is the sliver of moon filtering through the narrow, unglazed window. As always, is the stark contrast to your former life. No alarm clock, no blaring radio, of your body, attuned to the natural rhythms of the earth and sky. You rise, a shiver tracing its way down your spine. Filled with the quiet breathing of your fellow monks is a shared space of profound solitude. Gradually, you realize that this enforced quiet is not a passive state, but an active engagement with your own consciousness. The mind, by constant external stimuli, begins to explore its own vast interior landscapes. Memories, long dormant, surface with the vividness of recent events. The laughter of a childhood friend, the scent of your mother's baking, forgotten argument, they all re-emerge unbidden in the stillness. It's as if the silence acts as a powerful lens, sharp focus the minutiae of your past. You join the other brothers for prime, the first canonical hour of prayer. Chants sung in unison create a resonant hum that vibrates through the very stones of the chapel. Your voice, initially hesitant, chorus, a small contribution to the larger, ancient tradition. Brother Thomas, man with eyes that have seen too many winters, stands beside you. His presence is a silent comfort, experience of this ordered existence. Later, during your assigned task in the scriptorium, the silence takes on a different quality. Querels on vellum, the occasional cough, the rustle of parchment ant. These are the sounds of creation, of knowledge being preserved and transmitted. You are tasked with illuminating a manuscript. Slow process involving ground pigments and fine brushes. The intricate patterns, the vibrant reds of cinnabar and the deep blues of lapis lazuli demand your absolute focus. A steady hand is a prayer. Brother Michael, the master illuminator, murmurs, his voice a low rumble. He's a younger monk, energy tempered by the discipline of his craft. Each stroke is an offering. You nod, your own hand trembling slightly with the unfamiliarity of the task. You recall the speed and ease with which you used to type on a keyboard, effortless creation of words that now seem so ephemeral compared to the enduring beauty of this illuminated page. Mind wanders, you admit, your voice barely a whisper. Brother Michael smiles, a gentle crinkle around his eyes. is a wild bird brother. It will always seek to fly. Our task is not to cage it, but to guide its flight, teach it to sing the songs of devotion. He dips his quill into a small pot of ink, the dark liquid swirling like a miniature nebula. He continues, "It is not an absence of sound, but an invitation to listen more deeply. To the voice of God, yes, to the quiet wisdom that resides within yourself." This is a revelation. The quiet you sought wasn't an external pacifier, internal discipline. The battle for true quiet was never about silencing the world, but about taming the cacophony within. A similar struggle during a meditation retreat, the incessant chatter of your own thoughts drowning out the instructor's guidance. Here, the stakes feel higher, the rewards more profound. Spend hours meticulously applying gold leaf, the precious metal catching the light and shimmering with an otherworldly glow. The beeswax used to adhere it is sweet and warm. You feel a connection to the generations of scribes who have sat in this very room, their hands guided by the same meticulous devotion. Of history of human endeavor presses down, not oppressively, but as a testament to endurance. During the communal meal in the refectory, the silence is broken only by the reader's voice intoning passages from the Gospels. The food is simple, a thick vegetable stew, coarse bread, and a cup of watered ale. The textures are rough, earthy, and unpretentious. You chew slowly, savoring each mouthful, a stark contrast to the hurried meals of your past, consumed while scrolling through endless feeds of information. After the day's labor, Vespers concludes and the community disperses for the night. You find yourself drawn to the cloister garth, paints silver streaks across the worn flagstones. The night air is cool, carrying the faint scent of the herbs growing in the garden. You sit on a stone bench, the rough texture pressing into your legs through your habit. The figure approaches, the soft swish of his robe preceding him. It is Abbot Hallifric, a man of quiet authority and deep contemplation. His beard is streaked with grey, and his eyes hold a profound, almost ancient wisdom. "Lost in thought, brother?" he asks, his voice gentle. You look up, surprised. "Yes, Abbot. I am learning that true quiet is a difficult thing to find." Abbot Lofric chuckles softly, a sound like dry leaves rustling. "The world outside is loud, but the world within can be louder still. The constant hum of our desires, our regrets, questions. This life, this silence, it is an opportunity to listen to those whispers, to understand them, and perhaps peace with them." He gestures to the starry sky above. "Look at the vastness, brother. Each star a distant sun. And yet, we can feel a connection to it all. This is the gift of quiet. It allows us to perceive the subtle harmonies of existence, eternity." He places a hand on your shoulder, his touch surprisingly warm. "Do not fear the silence, brother. Embrace it. Let it be your companion, your teacher, for in its depths you may find the loudest, most important truths of all." He walks away, leaving you once again with the profound stillness, but now it feels less like an absence and more like a presence. Invites introspection, a quiet understanding that the loudest moments of your life might not be the ones filled with the most noise. Profound internal resonance. Tomorrow, the dawn will break again, and with it, a new day of quiet exploration will begin. What new echoes you will discover in the chambers of your mind. The further back we go, realize how much courage ordinary life required. Imagine, if you will, of the constant hum of modern existence. No smartphones pinging, no traffic roaring, no endless news cycles to consume. New reality should you awaken as a medieval monk in, say, the Abbey of St. Gall in Switzerland around the year 950 AD. profound quietude. The air itself seems to vibrate with a different frequency, one of stillness and contemplation, not to an alarm, but to the faint pre-dawn chill seeping through the rough wool of your habit. The stone floor is cool beneath your bare feet as you rise from your straw-filled pallet, and aged wood fills your small cell, a comforting earthy aroma that speaks of permanence. Your hands, accustomed to keyboards and screens, feel rough and calloused, ready for tasks that demand physical engagement. Filtering through the narrow, unglazed window reveals the stark simplicity of your surroundings: a wooden crucifix, table, a stool. This is not a life of grand pronouncements, but of subtle gestures, a symphony of silent understanding. The absence of constant chatter forces you to listen, truly listen to the world around you and the quiet whispers of your own soul. A practice, and for many, a profound liberation from the cacophony of the external. Time reveals the intricate tapestry of non-verbal communication that weaves through the fabric of monastic life. You've spent the last few days observing Brother Thomas, a man whose years have etched a gentle wisdom into his face. He rarely speaks. His presence is a constant source of calm. This morning, as you join the other brothers for the communal meal in the refectory, subtle shift in the atmosphere. The long wooden tables are laden with simple fare made from root vegetables and barley, crusty brown bread, and a small portion of smoked fish. Wooden bowls and spoons is the loudest sound, a rhythmic percussive beat against the pervasive silence. Brother Thomas, seated across from you, catches your eye. He offers a nearly imperceptible nod, a slight tilt of his head that conveys a wealth of understanding. You've been struggling with the Latin phrasing for the Psalms. Without a word, he reaches for the shared pitcher of watered wine and gently pushes it a fraction of an inch closer to you. Gesture, a silent acknowledgement of your effort, an offering of support. You respond with a grateful, acceptable dip of your chin. Later, during the afternoon's work in the scriptorium, meticulously copying a passage from the Gospels, your quill scratches softly against the parchment, sound apart from the distant chirping of birds outside the high-arched windows. Brother Michael, younger monk with a perpetual furrow in his brow, is working at the next table. He glances over at your illuminated initial, vibrant blue and gold. His iris linger for a moment, a flicker of admiration passing across his face. He doesn't offer praise, subtly shifts his stool a few inches closer, as if to better appreciate the artistry. Then, with a quick, almost furtive movement, he pushes a small, smooth stone towards your side of the table. You recognize it as a whetstone. Silent offer to sharpen your quill if it begins to fray. These are not grand pronouncements of brotherhood, but the quiet, essential acts that forge bonds in the absence of spoken affirmation. It's a language of shared labor, of mutual respect, understanding the unspoken needs of another. Discovered in the archives at St. Gall that such silent exchanges were vital for maintaining harmony within the monastic community, testament to the power of empathy in a world where words could be both scarce and burdensome. This contrasts sharply with our modern society, where constant verbal validation often masks a deeper lack of genuine connection. However, is anything but silent. The quiet amplifies your thoughts, your anxieties, your hopes. Meticulously trace the intricate lines of a capital letter, your mind races. You recall a particularly challenging conversation you had with a colleague before your temporal displacement. The sharp words, misunderstandings. Here, such conflicts are diffused before they even begin. A furrowed brow, a downcast gaze, a slight hesitation. These are the signals that prompt a brother to offer a comforting hand on your shoulder, a shared moment of prayer to leave you to your solitude. You witness this dynamic between Brother Benedict, the infirmarian, and Brother Anselm, persistent cough. Brother Benedict, his movements slow and deliberate, brings Brother Anselm a bowl of herbal broth. Ask if he's feeling better, knowing the answer will likely be a weary sigh. Instead, he simply places the bowl on the small table beside Brother Anselm's pallet, his gaze conveying a profound compassion. Brother Anselm, in turn, offers a weak but genuine smile, a slight inclination of his head that says, "Thank you." There are no elaborate inquiries, no probing questions, just a shared understanding of suffering and a quiet offering of solace. This silent exchange, need for performative empathy so common today, is deeply moving. It's a reminder that true connection often resides in the spaces between words, the shared vulnerability that requires no verbal articulation. You find yourself unconsciously mirroring these subtle gestures: gentle smile to a passing brother, a shared glance of acknowledgement during communal prayer, brotherly kindness born from a deep well of shared experience and unspoken empathy. This quiet existence, the architecture of the abbey itself, with its soaring vaulted ceilings and echoing stone corridors, seems to amplify this sense of shared humanity, a cathedral built not just of stone, but of silent understanding. As the day draws to a close, factory bell tolls, its resonant sound echoing through the cloister. The brothers gather for the evening meal, the same simple fare as breakfast. The silence, however, feels different now, imbued with the day's quiet labor and shared moments. Brother John, who is usually so reserved, share a knowing glance with Brother Peter across the table. It's a fleeting moment, shared amusement at some silent observation, a testament to the deep friendships forged in the crucible of shared silence. Unspoken camaraderie, this ability to find connection and support without the need for constant verbal affirmation. The most profound lesson you are learning. It's a gentle reminder that the loudest voices are not always the most meaningful. Community can thrive in the quietest of spaces. You feel a sense of peace settle over you that seeps into your very bones. Tomorrow, the rhythm will continue. Silent observation and subtle participation, another step deeper into the profound quietude of this medieval life. The passage of time reveals that even in the absence of spoken words, a rich and meaningful human connection can blossom, a delicate flower nurtured by empathy and shared existence. As darkness settles around you now, imagine darkness that meant something completely different. Not the gentle fade of twilight outside your modern window, but the profound compassing of a cramped cell, thick with the scent of damp stone and the faint, sweet decay of old straw. You wake up to the chirping of birds, but to the echoing silence of the abbey, a silence so deep it hums in your bones. Your rough wool tunic, your skin, is the only immediate tactile reality, seeps through the thin soles of your leather sandals. You are Brother Thomas, and your vow of silence on the solemn feast day of Saint Benedict is the bedrock of your existence within the walls of St. Cuthbert's Abbey in the windswept fells of Northumbria, circa 1185. Experience becomes your teacher. The initial shock of this existence, forced quiet, has long since faded, replaced by a practiced, almost instinctual stillness. Yet, even stillness has its temptations. Today, the temptation arrives not as a boisterous temptation of the flesh, but as a whisper of the mind, a subtle erosion of resolve. You are in the scriptorium, the air thick with the earthy aroma of ink and parchment. Sunlight, filtered through narrow, leaded windows, paints dusty golden shafts across the long oak tables. Brother Michael's face is a roadmap of gentle wrinkles and whose hands move with the practiced grace of a surgeon. Meticulously illuminating a manuscript, his quill scratches softly against the vellum, a sound so delicate it's barely a breath. Tasked with copying the Psalms, your own quill poised over a fresh sheet, the words themselves, familiar and comforting, are meant to be a shield against stray thoughts. But today, a specific passage, a lament from David, catches in your throat, spoken feeling. My heart is pained within me. You read, the words resonating with a hidden ache you've carried since your novice days. A desire to break your vow for gossip or idle chatter, but a profound yearning for connection, shared understanding of this quiet burden. You glance at Brother Michael. He pauses, dipping his quill into a pot of vibrant vermilion ink. His brow is furrowed in concentration, his lips pressed together in a thin line. You recall a conversation, a rare one, overheard years ago between him and the abbot. Brother Michael had been struggling with his own quietude, confessing to a longing for the spoken word, for the resonance of a shared laugh. A man of immense patience and a voice like distant thunder had spoken of the monastery as a crucible, spirit through the refining fire of silence, the spoken word. The abbot had said, his voice a low rumble, candle flame, bright but fleeting. Silence is the deep well from which true understanding springs. This memory surfaces now, not as a comfort but as a challenge. You feel a sudden, overwhelming urge to reach out, to tap Brother Michael's shoulder, to utter a single word, a simple acknowledgement of shared struggle. Understand. The words form in your mind a potent, almost physical sensation. Your fingers twitch, the quill trembling in your grasp. The ink, a deep black, pools on the parchment, mirroring the darkness you feel stirring within. Experience becomes your teacher. You remember your first few years here, the clumsy attempts to communicate through gestures, frustration that often bloomed in your chest like a thorny rose. Recall the day you accidentally spilled a precious vial of lapis lazuli pigment, the vibrant blue staining the clean stone floor. Was to cry out, to apologize, to explain, but the vial held you, a physical force. Instead, you knelt, shaking, and painstakingly cleaned the mess, the silence a heavy cloak of shame. Brother Michael, seeing your distress, placed a hand on your shoulder, his touch conveying a silent empathy that spoke volumes. That was the power of their shared language, the language of the silent. The temptation to speak today is different, accident or fear, but of a deep-seated human need. You've been studying the life of Saint Cuthbert himself, hermit who lived in profound solitude on the Farne Islands. The historical records, painstakingly preserved in the Abbey Library, speak of his communion with God, his deep connection to the natural world. I discovered in the archives, in a crumbling vellum scroll, a passage describing Cuthbert's own internal struggles, his moments of profound loneliness, found solace not in spoken words, but in the silent contemplation of the sea, the cry of the gulls, the rustle of the wind, the voice of God. The scroll read, "A's not in the clamour of men, of the soul." You look at your own hands, from hours of labour in the fields and the meticulous work of copying. They are capable hands, hands that have learned to weave, to illuminate. But can they learn to hold back the tide of a single word? The weight of the vow presses down. Presence in the quiet room. You feel a bead of sweat trickle down your temple. A tiny, warm river in the cool air. Is a siren song whispering of release, of a fleeting moment of human connection. Suddenly, Brother Michael looks up. His eyes, sky blue, meet yours. He offers a small, almost imperceptible nod, a faint smile playing on his lips. It's a gesture of acknowledgement, of shared experience, of silent understanding. It's a reminder that connection, true connection, exists beyond the spoken word. Your breath, which you hadn't realized you were holding, slowly escapes. The urge to speak recedes. Behind a residue of quiet exhaustion, you dip your quill back into the ink, the scratching sound of familiar comfort. The words on the page, "My heart is pained within me," no longer feel like a solitary lament, but a shared echo in the vast, silent cathedral of your monastic life. Experience becomes your teacher. The desire to speak, though powerful, with a shouted defiance, but with a quiet redirection. You have learned, once again, that the strength of your vow lies not in the suppression of feeling, but in the channeling of it, in finding expression, the subtle gestures, the shared glances, the silent communion of souls. This internal battle, won in the quiet of the scriptorium, is a testament to the profound, often invisible work of faith. Tomorrow, new challenges will arise, new whispers will test your resolve, and you will continue to learn the intricate, exhausting, ultimately rewarding art of living a life defined by silence. The gentle rhythm of your breathing begins to deepen, the sounds of the scriptorium fading as you drift towards a quiet sleep, carrying with you the subtle victory of another day held in silence. The history books never quite capture the texture of daily life in this remarkable era, and nowhere is that more true than within the quiet, a monastery. You've been here for months now, a silent observer, a hesitant participant. Initial shock of your temporal displacement has softened into a dull ache, a constant hum beneath the surface of your awareness. Wool of your tunic, once an alien scratch against your skin, now feels like a second skin. The scent of wood smoke and damp earth, jarring, has become the very air you breathe. You've shed the anxieties of your former life. Clamor of the digital age replaced by the rhythmic chanting of the divine office and the whisper of parchment. It's a profound stillness, a quietude that allows the smallest sounds to bloom into symphonies. The scuttling of a mouse behind the wainscoting, the distant bleating of sheep in the cloister garth, sigh of the wind through the ancient oak outside your cell. This is not a life of grand pronouncements or earth-shattering events, meticulous, unhurried devotion, a tapestry woven with threads of patience and purpose. Understand the profound satisfaction that comes from mastering a skill that demands absolute focus. Brother Thomas, gnarled like ancient roots, his face a roadmap of years spent in prayer and labor, has taken you under his wing. Your task, Abbot Bernard himself, is to assist in the scriptorium, specifically with the art of illumination. It's a craft that feels both impossibly delicate and remarkably grounding. The vellum, stretched taut and smooth, awaits your touch. Ground from precious stones and dried plants by Brother Silas in his small workshop, lapis lazuli for that celestial blue, for verdant greens, cinnabar for fiery reds, are laid out in tiny ceramic pots. Your first attempts were clumsy. The quill, sharpened to a needlepoint, splattered ink like a clumsy child. Your lines wavered, the nervous tremor in your hand. Brother Thomas, with a patience that seems as infinite as God's mercy, your fingers, his voice a low murmur. Steady, my son. Let the quill dance. Fight. He showed you how to hold the inkpot, how to dip the quill just so, how to create a fine, consistent line. Taught you the secret of the burnishing, the application of gold leaf, so thin it seemed to capture the very light of heaven. Mix the binder's egg yolk, gum arabic to achieve the perfect consistency for the paint. The smell of the drying ink, mingled with the sweet scent of the beeswax used to polish the finished pages. One crisp autumn afternoon, tang of fallen leaves. You were working on a large initial D for a new copy of the Psalms, protruded slightly from the corner of your mouth, a telltale sign of your concentration. Carefully applied a thin layer of gesso, a mixture of chalk and glue, to the vellum where the gold leaf would adhere. The sun, slanting through the high-arched windows of the scriptorium, illuminated the dust motes dancing in the air, turning them into tiny, golden sprites. Brother Thomas approached, his footsteps soft on the stone floor. He carried a small wooden bowl filled with a steaming. "A bit of spiced wine, my son," he said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "And steady the hand." The wine, infused with cloves and cinnamon, was a revelation. It warmed you from the inside out, chill that always seemed to linger in the stone walls. You took a sip, the heat spreading through your chest, and then returned to your work, your hand feeling steadier than it had all day. "You have a good eye for color," Brother Thomas observed, his gaze fixed on your work. "Many struggle to balance the hues, to make them sing together. Yours have a certain harmony." You felt a flush of pride, a sensation that was both foreign and deeply satisfying. "I try," you murmured, your voice raspy from dessous. "It's just so beautiful. Create something that might last for centuries, that might bring someone closer to God." He nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes. "That is the purpose indeed. We are but instruments, and the Lord guides our hands. Remember, beauty we create is a reflection of his own perfect creation. Do not seek to outshine it." He then pointed to a particular shade of blue you had mixed. "That lapis, it's from the eastern lands, is it not? Historical fact, one's lapis lazuli, prized for its intense blue hue, was indeed a precious commodity in the Middle Ages, imported from Afghanistan and used in the most expensive illuminations. Historical fact 2a, the scriptorium was not just a place for copying texts, but often for their creation, meticulously illustrating manuscripts, turning them into works of art. Historical fact 3, the practice of illumination was a painstaking process, or even years, to complete a single large manuscript, with each stroke of the brush imbued with prayer and intention. Himself often visited the scriptorium, his presence a quiet benediction. He would examine your work, his brow furrowed in contemplation, before offering a few words of encouragement. "Your diligence is commendable," he said one morning, his voice resonating with a gentle authority. "The Lord rewards a willing spirit. Continue in this path. Find true fulfillment." His words were like a balm, soothing the lingering anxieties that sometimes surfaced in the quiet hours of the night. You begin to understand that this structured work, adherence to a precise and demanding craft, is a form of meditation. The repetitive motions, the careful application of color, focus required, it all serves to quiet the incessant chatter of the mind, contrast to the constant barrage of information and stimuli you're accustomed to. Here, the goal is not to consume, create, to translate beauty and faith onto parchment. It's a slow, deliberate process, stark reminder of how much of modern life is lived at a frenetic, often superficial pace. You find yourself looking forward to the hours spent in the scriptorium, the cool air, the hushed atmosphere. All progress you make with each stroke, it's a form of quiet mastery, a deep well of satisfaction that you never knew existed. Just copying words, you're imbuing them with visual splendor, a legacy of knowledge and devotion that stretches back centuries, and you hope will continue long after you are gone. As the days grow shorter and the air turns colder, hinting at the coming winter, you find yourself looking forward to the next stage of your apprenticeship. Thomas has spoken of the intricate work of creating borders, floral motifs, and interwoven vines that frame the sacred text. The thought of mastering this new, more intricate skill fills you with a quiet anticipation, a sense that this slow, deliberate journey of learning is only just beginning. As we prepare to explore what life truly meant in another time, in the rhythm of monastic life, the echoes of your previous experiences shaping your understanding, to appreciate the subtle language of the monastery, the unspoken communication that binds the community. You felt the profound stillness of the night, a stillness that offered both solace and a stark reminder of the world's vastness. To master the meticulous craft of manuscript illumination, your fingers stained with pigment, focused on the divine beauty you are helping to create. Today, however, brings a new dimension to your existence, engagement with the very heart of this silent world. As the seasons change, your routines, once jarring, are practiced ease. The rough wool of your habit, initially a source of discomfort, has become a familiar second skin, and thin broth, once meager sustenance, now satisfy a primal hunger, are punctuated by the sonorous call of the bells, each toll a gentle nudge back into the present moment, a reminder of your purpose. You've observed the quiet diligence of your brothers, their faces etched with devotion, their movements economical and precise. Learn to read the subtle shifts in their postures, the flick of an eye, the slight inclination of a head, volumes of information in this world of profound silence. Today, however, you are summoned to the abbot's cell. The abbot, figure of immense spiritual authority, rarely speaks. His communication is a masterful symphony of gestures, a few carefully chosen words, overwhelming presence that commands respect and inspires awe. You approach his chamber, a small, Spartan room at the eastern end of the cloister, its stone walls cool to the touch, even on a summer's day, faintly of beeswax, dried herbs, and the musty scent of ancient parchment. Sunlight, filtered through a narrow, casts long, dancing shadows across the worn flagstones. The abbot sits on a simple wooden stool, his back straight, peacefully on his knees, his face a roadmap of a life dedicated to contemplation and service, is serene, his eyes piercing, hold a wisdom that seems to span centuries. You bow your head, your own hands clasped before you. His instruction, he looks at you, a gentle smile playing on his lips, and then slowly raises a hand, palm outward, a gesture of greeting and acknowledgement. You return the gesture, a silent understanding passing between you. He then points to a small, carved wooden box on a low table beside him. You approach it, your heart thrumming with a mixture of anticipation and reverence. The box is made of oak, its surface smoothed by countless years of handling. On its lid, carving depicts a scene of the Annunciation, the Virgin Mary with her head bowed, the angel Gabriel kneeling before her. Craftsmanship is exquisite, the details so fine they seem to breathe life into the wood. You recognize the style, similar to the illumination work you've been practicing, but executed with a mastery that far surpasses your current skill. Gestures for you to open it. You lift the lid, revealing a collection of small, smooth stones, each one unique in color and texture. Deep emerald green, speckled with flecks of gold, others of a rich, earthy brown, worn smooth by the passage of time. Pale, milky white, almost translucent. He picks up a green stone, its coolness seeping into his palm, and then places it back. Picks up a brown stone, holding it for a moment before returning it to the box. His movements are deliberate, unhurried, each gesture imbued with meaning. You recall a passage from a treatise you'd encountered in the scriptorium. Bede the Venerable, written around 731 AD, discussing the symbolic significance of various stones in Christian tradition. Stones were believed to possess healing properties or to ward off evil. The abbot, through this silent demonstration, seems to be communicating not just a lesson, but a deeper understanding of the material world and its connection to the spiritual. He's teaching you to observe, to discern, to find meaning in the seemingly ordinary. He then gestures towards a large manuscript lying open on a lectern across the room. It is a copy of the Gospels, filled with vibrant colours and intricate designs. The abbot points to a specific illustration, Christ calming the storm. He then looks at you, his gaze steady, and makes a sweeping motion with his hand, as if to encompass the entire monastery, the surrounding lands, the very world. His eyes convey a profound message that true leadership lies not in commanding with words, but in understanding and guiding, in fostering peace and order. Christ calmed the tempest. He then picks up a small, dark obsidian stone, its surface polished to a mirror-like sheen. And for a fleeting moment, you see your own reflection, distorted and wavering in its dark depths. Gently places it back in the box, closing the lid with a soft thud. The abbot then looks at you, a gentle nod of his head, dismissal. You bow once more, your mind a whirlwind of impressions. Lesson far more profound than any spoken word could convey. You understand that true authority stems from inner strength, knowledge and empathy, and from the ability to communicate with clarity and purpose, even in silence. Seasons change, you carry this silent wisdom with you. You continue your duties, your craft, but with a newfound depth of understanding. You begin to notice the subtle nuances in the interactions of your fellow monks. Marjorie, the shared purpose that binds them. You realize that the quiet life you've embraced is not one of emptiness, profound richness, a life lived in constant communion with the divine and with each other, built on a foundation of shared experience and silent understanding. The abbot's lesson has opened your eyes to a new way of seeing, being, a testament to the enduring power of quiet wisdom. The abbot's silent teachings have planted a seed within you. Continue to grow as you navigate the complexities of this serene yet demanding existence. A growing connection to the land, to the rhythms of nature, and to the enduring spirit of the community you now belong to. The path ahead, though quiet, is filled with discovery, and you are ready to embrace it. Studied paint a picture that's both more mundane and more extraordinary than many realize. Meticulous record keeping of illuminated manuscripts painstakingly copied, of the rhythmic clang of the bell calling brothers to prayer. But beneath the surface of this structured existence, echoes of profound human experience, the quiet desperation of a soul wrestling with its purpose, insignificance in the face of eternity. These were not automatons, they were men, flesh and blood, with the same existential questions that plague us today, albeit within a vastly different context of centuries of human endeavour, preserved in brittle parchment and faded ink, can feel overwhelming. To have lived and lost, each a fleeting spark against the vast backdrop of time. It is this very weight, this sense of immense, almost crushing continuity that can lead to a profound moment of doubt. As days blur into weeks, novelty of your monastic existence begins to fade, replaced by a gnawing emptiness that even the most devout chants struggle to fill. You wake before dawn, stone floor seeping through your thin woolen habit. The air is thick with the scent of beeswax candles and the faint, damp stone. Your cell, a stark cube of grey, offers little comfort. The rough, hewn wooden bed is unforgiving, straw mattress rustling with every shift of your body. Outside, the pre-dawn sky is a bruised purple. Sound is the distant hoot of an owl. This is the quietest life. Yes, but it is also a life stripped bare of the world, is replaced by the deafening roar of your own thoughts. You're questioning the very foundation of your new reality. What is the true purpose of this endless cycle of prayer labor? The abbot, Brother Thomas, a man whose face is a roadmap of deep contemplation and quiet suffering, purpose of service to God and the preservation of knowledge, yet meticulously copy a passage from the Vulgate Bible, your hand cramped and your eyes weary from the flickering candlelight. Sense of futility washes over you. You've spent hours on a single page, the ink bleeding slightly on the vellum. Phrases blurring into an indecipherable stream. You remember the vibrant energy of the world outside, the bustling markets of London, the laughter of children, debates of scholars in Oxford. That life, with all its imperfections, felt alive. This life, steeped in a different kind of reverence, feels like a slow, deliberate fading. One afternoon, the monastery's herb garden, the scent of lavender and thyme heavy in the air, you encounter Brother Michael, a younger monk with a perpetually anxious expression. He's struggling to uproot a particularly stubborn weed as he pulls. This weed, he stammers, his voice barely a whisper. It grows so quickly. How much I pull, it always seems to return. You pause, texture of the soil clinging to your calloused fingertips. That is the nature of weeds, Brother Michael. You say, your voice surprisingly steady. He looks up, his eyes wide and troubled. But is it not also the nature of doubts? Sprout so easily, and then they take root, choking out the good. He gestures vaguely towards the monastery's towering stone walls. I wonder if any of this truly matters. If our prayers reach anywhere beyond these walls, if our work is truly seen. His words strike a chord deep within you. You felt that same creeping unease, that whisper of insignificance. You recall a conversation you'd had with Brother John, who had served the monastery for 50 years, his hands gnarled like ancient oak roots, about his life's work, the endless hours spent illuminating manuscripts. Each stroke of the brush, he'd replied, his voice raspy but clear, is a prayer in itself, a moment of devotion. And even if only one soul, centuries from now, solely saw inspiration in these pages, vain, he had then shown you a beautifully rendered initial A from a psalter he had worked on in his youth, shimmering. This, he'd said, his eyes twinkling. This was for the glory of God, but also, perhaps, the quiet joy of a weary soul finding beauty in the darkness. The contrast between Brother Michael's despair and Brother John's quiet faith is stark. You realize that the very stillness you sought can become a breeding ground for fear. The silence, which was meant to be a balm, now amplifies the anxieties that have always lurked beneath the surface. You are a historian, trained to observe, to analyze the grand sweep of human events. But here, in this cloistered existence, the grand sweep feels distant, replaced by the stark reality of individual existence. What if this life, this chosen path of quietude, is merely a slow surrender to oblivion, a forgotten footnote in the vast narrative of humanity? The thought chills you more than the damp stone of your cell. Evening in the scriptorium, not copying, but simply gazing at the illuminated manuscripts. The vibrant colors, patterns, the golden halos, they are undeniably beautiful testaments to human skill and devotion. But tonight, you trace the lines of a miniature depicting a monk in prayer, his face serene, his posture perfect, to your own reflection in the polished surface of the wooden desk, your brow furrowed with fatigue and a nascent dread. The purpose that seemed so clear, so vital, now feels fragile, delicate bloom easily crushed. You recall research you'd done on the monastic orders of the 12th century, the Cistercians, known for their austere lifestyle and manual labor. Their vows of poverty, chastity, were meant to strip away worldly distractions, to focus the soul on God. But for you, it feels like a stripping away of self, a gradual erasure. You find yourself yearning for a tangible connection to the world, a reminder that your existence has an impact beyond the confines of these hollowed walls. The quiet you craved now feels like an isolating abyss, as the moon, a sliver of bone in the inky sky, begins its descent. Profound weariness settle over you. The weight of your doubt is a physical burden. You consider the lives of the peasants in the nearby village, their lives filled with hardship and uncertainty, mainly connected to the earth, to the cycles of planting and harvest, to the very essence of survival. Their struggles, while immense, purpose immediate. Your purpose, by contrast, feels abstract, intangible, and increasingly hollow. Been a whisper now threatens to become a shout. What if you have traded a meaningful, albeit noisy, existence for a silent, meaningless one? This existential dread, this questioning of your very contribution to the tapestry of life, crucial moment in understanding the true nature of this chosen path. These moments of profound doubt that the true test of faith and of self begins. The night is deep and the silence is absolute. Close your eyes, but sleep offers no respite. The questions churn, a restless sea within your mind. Tomorrow, the bell will ring again, to labor to the familiar routine. But something within you has shifted. This moment of profound introspection with existential fear will undoubtedly shape the path ahead. You are on the precipice of a profound realization, turning point that will determine whether this quiet life becomes a sanctuary or a tomb for your spirit. The next dawn will bring not just the usual tasks, but the challenge of confronting the void within. Probably heard romanticized tales about this period, but the reality was far more complex. The allure of the monastic life, the perceived escape from the chaos of the world, is a potent one, and it's a feeling that's beginning to resonate deeply within you. The harshness you anticipated, the gnawing hunger, the bone-chilling cold, the constant spiritual torment, these elements are present, certainly, yet they are not the dominant notes in the symphony of your existence here. Instead, calm of contentment has begun to weave itself through the fabric of your days, a peace you never knew you were capable of experiencing. You'd expected to be racked by doubt, by the lingering ghosts of your former life, whelming vastness of your newfound spiritual responsibility, and indeed, shadows still flicker at the edges of your awareness, but they are no longer the primary focus. Questioning that plagued you in Part 16 has begun to soften, replaced by a gentle acceptance of the present moment. Find yourself listening more intently, observing with a clarity that feels almost supernatural. The world, once a cacophony of anxieties, slowly resolving into a serene, ordered landscape. This unexpected inner peace, this quiet joy, perhaps the most profound revelation of your monastic journey thus far. Testament to the transformative power of a life stripped bare of modern distractions, dictated by the rhythm of bells and the turning of the earth. With each passing moment, shifts within you become more pronounced. The rough wool of your habit, once a scratchy irritant, comforting embrace against your skin. The simple, unadorned stone walls of your cell, previously imposing and austere, offer a sense of profound security, a sanctuary from the storms of the outside world, both literal and metaphorical. You find yourself rising before the first hint of dawn, not out of obligation, but out of a genuine desire to greet the new day. The chill air, crisp and clean, bites at your cheeks as you make your way to the chapel. Glow of oil lamps illuminating the worn flagstones, the scent of beeswax and old parchment hangs heavy in the air, a perfume that has become more familiar and beloved than any fragrance from your past. One morning, as you're tending to the scriptorium, copying a passage from the Gospels onto a fresh sheet of vellum, Abbot Thomas approaches. He moves with a quiet grace, clasped behind his back. His eyes, the color of faded denim, hold a deep, knowing warmth. Brother Benedict, he begins, a low rumble like distant thunder. I have observed a new stillness in you. The once shadowed your brow seemed to have receded like mist before the sun. You pause your quill, momentarily forgotten. Abbot, you reply, your voice steadier than you expected. I believe I am beginning to understand. The quiet, not a burden, but a liberation. He smiles, a gentle creasing of his face. Outside clamors for attention, for validation, for fleeting pleasures. Here, kind of richness, the richness of the soul, cultivated through devotion and simplicity. It is a path not for the faint of heart, but for those who seek a deeper truth. He gestures to the manuscript. Your hand is steady, form. This is the work of a soul at peace, finding its purpose in service. Later that day, midday meal in the refectory, you find yourself seated next to Brother Silas, a man whose gruff exterior belies a kind heart. Aroma of the simple lentil stew fills the vast hall. The clatter of wooden spoons against earthenware bowls a familiar rhythm. Silas struggling with his own spiritual doubts lately, his brow often furrowed in contemplation. Silas murmurs, his gaze fixed on his bowl. I confess, there are times I question the efficacy of our prayers. The world outside continues its turmoil. The harvest in the nearby village of Oakhaven was poor this year, and yet we sit here within these walls chanting and praying. You recall the existential dread that had consumed you just weeks ago. Brother Silas, you begin, choosing your words carefully. I understand your questioning. I, too, have wrestled with such thoughts. But I have come to believe that our purpose here is not to change the world directly, but to be a beacon of God's light within it. Our devotion, they create a spiritual shield, a testament to faith that can inspire others, even from afar. The illuminated manuscripts we create, and wisdom can travel further than any army. You remember reading in a monastic chronicle from the 12th century how monasteries served as centers of learning and charity, often providing refuge and sustenance during times of famine and unrest. This monastery, founded in 1073 near the ruins of an older Roman villa, was no different. Silas nods slowly, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. A beacon, he repeats softly, as if tasting the word. Perhaps you are right, it is a different kind of strength, a quiet, enduring strength. With each passing moment, find yourself drawn to the monastery's small infirmary, a place you'd previously avoided, associating it with sickness and suffering. Today, however, you feel a pull to assist Brother Martin, the resident healer. Is thick with the scent of herbs, lavender for calm, rosemary for remembrance, and the pungent aroma of willow bark, pain reliever. Brother Martin, a man of few words but immense practical knowledge, preparing a poultice for a monk suffering from a persistent cough. He works with practiced efficiency, precise as he crushes dried herbs with a mortar and pestle. "Brother Benedict," he grunts without looking up, "your hands are steady. Help me grind these elderberries. They are good for the lungs." As you crush the berries, releasing a faint, sweet perfume, you feel a profound sense of connection to the cycle of life and healing. You've learned that during the Black Death in the 14th century, monastic communities were often at the forefront of care, though their understanding of contagion was limited. Yet their dedication to alleviating suffering using the knowledge they possessed. You observe Brother Martin's gentle touch as he applies the poultice, the quiet murmur of his prayers for the sick man's recovery. It's a stark contrast to the sterile, impersonal efficiency of modern medicine. And yet there's a raw human element here that speaks directly to the soul. You realize that this quiet life, while outwardly simple, is rich with purpose, each task a thread in the tapestry of faith and community. Sense of calm, this unexpected inner peace, is a revelation. It's a quiet strength that allows you to face the world within these cloistered walls with a serene acceptance. The doubts haven't vanished entirely, hold dominion. They are like distant clouds, observed rather than feared, beginning to understand that the quietest life can be the most profound, a fertile ground for the soul to blossom. Dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the monastery courtyard. You feel a gentle weariness settle over you. Tired, the Vesper bells will soon call you to prayer, and you anticipate the familiar cadence with a sense of quiet eagerness. Return to your cell. You find yourself lingering by the monastery's ancient well, worn smooth by centuries of use. The water, drawn from deep within the earth, is cool and clear. You cup your hands and drink. Unadulterated taste, a simple pleasure. You know that tomorrow will bring more of the same. The quiet routines, little practices, the subtle unfolding of your inner landscape, and you are ready for it. You are ready for whatever comes next. Of this unexpected journey towards a peace you never imagined possible. Echo in your mind a beacon of God's light, and you realize with a quiet certainty, indeed becoming that beacon, one peaceful, prayerful day at a time. From period dramas, the truth is far more fascinating. The silence isn't an emptiness, but a canvas. It's a vibrant, living thing composed of the rustle of parchment, the distant clang of a bell, the soft scuff of sandals on stone. In this cloistered existence, for what feels like an eternity, and yet perhaps only a handful of seasons, the gnawing confusion has begun to recede, replaced by a quiet acceptance. You wake not to an alarm, the subtle shift in light filtering through the narrow, leaded panes of your cell. The air, faint scent of beeswax and dried herbs, fills your lungs. Your rough-wool tunic, scratchy against your skin, grunting weight. Time moves differently when you are stripped of the constant clamor of modern life. The days unspool with a deliberate rhythm. You find yourself observing Brother Thomas, a man whose age is etched not in years, furrows of his brow, and the gentle, almost imperceptible tremor in his hands as he meticulously copies a scripture. Speaks his communication a series of subtle nods, raised eyebrows, way he positions his body to offer you a better view of the illuminated manuscript he's working on. Today, as you join him at the scriptorium table, the only sounds are the scratch of quills on vellum and the low hum of the wind outside. You notice a particular passage he's rendering, the intricate knotwork of an initial letter. He pauses in the rich lapis lazuli ink, and then, with a flick of his wrist, adds a tiny, almost invisible flourish to the design. a fleeting moment of shared appreciation for the artistry. You offer a small, almost imperceptible nod in return. Language now, a silent conversation built on shared purpose and mutual respect. The abbot's instruction from weeks past, a brief, resonant series of gestures that conveyed both the task and a blessing. He then mimed the grinding of herbs, his eyes conveying a gentle urgency. You understood. You'd spent the morning there, tending to Brother Alaric, whose cough had worsened. You'd brewed him a decoction of horehound and honey, a comforting aroma in the small, dimly lit room. Alaric, his face pale and drawn, placed a hand over his heart, his gratitude a palpable presence. You'd sat with him, not speaking, just being present. Texture of the straw-filled mattress beneath you a grounding sensation. The faint scent of sickness mingled with the clean smell of the herbs. Later in the refectory, the communal meal was a symphony of quiet chewing and the clinking of wooden bowls. Offeth but Brother Lias, a younger monk whose initial shyness had gradually given way to a quiet camaraderie. He caught your eye and offered a faint smile, a silent acknowledgement of the shared labor of the day. Piece of coarse bread closer to you with his elbow, a gesture of unspoken generosity, discovered in archives at the monastery of St. Albans dating from the 13th century, that such non-verbal exchanges were not uncommon. Especially in communities where silence was a spiritual discipline, the very act of shared labor fostered a profound sense of connection, a bond forged in the absence of words. This quiet existence, your previous life, has begun to reveal its own profound depths. You remember the constant barrage of noise in your former world, the blare of horns, the incessant chatter, the digital notifications. The silence is not a void, but a space for introspection. You feel the grain of the wooden bench beneath your bare feet as you sit in the chapel, a contrast to the warmth radiating from the few bodies around you. The scent of incense, heavy and sweet, hangs in the air, a faint, earthy smell of the rushes strewn on the floor. You close your eyes, focusing on the rhythmic chanting of the psalms, fall of the voices a soothing balm. It's a stark contrast to the fragmented, often superficial interactions of modern society, can feel elusive amidst the digital din. Here, a shared glance, a bowed head, a simple act of service, immense weight. It's a reminder that communication is not solely the domain of words, but also of presence, intention, shared experience. You realize that this quiet life, this life of deliberate observation and subtle connection, perhaps the most profound lesson the monastery has to offer. Time moves differently when you are learning a new way to be human. Quiet understanding you forged with Brother Thomas, for instance, has deepened. You now anticipate his needs before he expresses them. You'll fetch him a fresh quill when you see his is wearing down, a sip of water from your own cup without a spoken word. He, in turn, will subtly adjust the angle of the oil lamp to better illuminate your work, your hand to a more precise stroke when you are struggling with a particularly intricate piece of illumination. These are not grand gestures, but small, consistent acts of consideration that weave a tapestry of mutual reliance. You find yourself looking forward to these silent exchanges, these moments of shared understanding that transcend the need for language. Weight of the vellum in your hands, the subtle scent of the ink, shared warmth of the lamp, all these sensory details contribute to this growing connection. You recall reading about the rule of Stein, emphasizes obedience and community, and how such a life devoid of individualistic expression could paradoxically foster a deeper sense of unity. The approach of dusk brings its own quiet rituals, the sun, a fiery orb, the horizon, casting long shadows across the courtyard. The air grows cooler, carrying the faint aroma of stew from the kitchens. You join the other monks for Vespers, the solemnity of the service of familiar comfort. On the cold stone floor, the rough wool of your habit a familiar texture against your knees. Feel a sense of peace settle over you, the faint murmur of prayers, the distant call of a night bird to the deepening quiet. You catch Brother Elias's eye across the nave. He offers a small, knowing smile, a shared acknowledgement of the day's end and the promise of another dawn. This shared silent understanding, this deep bond forged not through words, but through shared experience and subtle gestures, is the true heart of this quiet life that speaks volumes in its silence. The profound ways humans can connect when stripped of the clamour of the world. As you rise from prayer, rays of sunlight catching the dust motes dancing in the air, you feel a gentle anticipation for the coming days, unfolding of this silent, shared journey. What if I told you that everything you thought you knew about this period was incomplete? You might envision a life of unyielding, perhaps even monotonous devotion within stone walls, and for a time, that was the truth of your existence. But the quietest life you'd so carefully cultivated was about to be shattered not by an external force, but by a slow, insidious rot from within. Changes as the subtle signs of discord begin to manifest. It started, as most things did, with whispers. Brother Thomas, though garled with age, moved with an unsettling swiftness as he transcribed ancient texts in the scriptorium to voice his unease. You found him one afternoon, not bent over a vellum page, but staring out the narrow window of the refectory, the afternoon sun casting long, distorted shadows across the stone floor. Stale bread and weak all hung in the air, a familiar, comforting aroma, but today it seemed to carry a faint, unsettling tang of decay. Brother Alaric, he began, his voice a low rasp, like dry leaves skittering across flagstones, the lack of fervour in Brother Michael's prayers. You paused, spun tunic scratching against your skin, the coarse wool of familiar texture. You'd been contemplating the precise shade of blue the illuminator used on the initial eye of the Psalter, lapis lazuli that seemed to capture the very essence of the divine. Brother Michael, you echoed, the young novice's face. He was usually so eager, his voice a clear, if untrained, tenor during compline. Thomas turned, usually twinkling with the quiet amusement of a man who understood the subtle humour in the monastic life, now held a troubled depth. He questions, you see, not the doctrine, not the Holy Mother Church, but the application of it. He spoke to me yesterday of the tithes demanded from the villagers of Oakhaven. They are starving, Brother Alaric. Crops failed for the third season running, and yet insists on the full measure. The weight of his words settled upon you, heavy and unwelcome. Oakhaven. You remembered visiting the small, huddled village surrounding your monastery, the scent of wood smoke and damp earth, the rough, calloused hands of the farmers who brought their meager offerings. You recalled the wide, pleading eyes of a woman, worry, as she presented a basket of bruised apples, her child clinging to her skirts. Duty is to the monastery, Thomas, you replied, though the words felt hollow even to your own ears. The abbot, imposing stature and a voice that could command obedience with a single syllable, seemed an unshakable pillar of righteousness. But Thomas's observation pricked at a burgeoning unease within you. Not the abbot's duty also to God's flock? Thomas countered, his gaze unwavering. These are not merely parishioners. Alaric, they are our neighbours, They are the ones who mend our roofs, who bring us the grain for our bread in times of hardship. The rhythm of life changes as you begin to see the cracks in the seemingly perfect edifice of your monastic existence. Paying closer attention, you noticed Brother Michael, his brow furrowed in concentration, not during prayer. During discussions with the lay brothers who worked the monastery's fields, you overheard snippets of conversation, hushed and urgent, about the dwindling stores of grain, the increasing pleas from the surrounding hamlets. One evening, during the silent supper, sharing of gruel and hard bread, the air felt thick with unspoken tension. The abbot, seated at the high table, his usually stern expression softened by the flickering candlelight, addressed the assembled brethren. "My sons," he began, voice resonating through the vaulted ceiling, the sound echoing off the cold stone walls. "We have received word from the bishop. He requires an additional contribution of 50 measures of our finest wheat for the king's coffers. This is a heavy burden. Bear with grace and obedience." A collective sigh, barely audible, rippled through the refectory of unease. 50 measures. The granary was already looking sparse. You'd seen the lay brothers, their faces gaunt, as they rationed the remaining provisions. Later that night, you sought out Brother Michael in the dimly lit cloister. Damp stone and the faint, sweet perfume of night blooming jasmine filled the air. The moonlight, cool and ethereal, and silver stripes across the flagstones. You found him sitting on a stone bench, his head bowed, his hands clasped tightly. You whispered, your voice barely disturbing the profound silence. He looked up, wide and shadowed in the moonlight. "Brother Alaric, I cannot bear it." "Bear what?" you asked, sitting beside him. "The stone was cold beneath your habit." "The injustice," he said, his voice trembling. "The abbot, he knows our stores are low, villagers are suffering. Yet he sends this wheat, prioritizes the king's demands over the needs of God's own people." You remembered something you'd read in the monastery's library from St. Augustine's City of God, where he discussed the responsibilities of rulers and the obedience of subjects. But this felt different. This wasn't about abstract theological debate. This was about tangible hunger of the people you'd sworn to serve, albeit from a distance. "I discovered in the archives," you confessed, lowering your voice further, or ledger from 50 years ago. "During the Great Famine of 1125, Steri sent a significant portion of its reserves to the aid of the surrounding villages. We did not hoard, we shared." The abbot was known for his compassion, not his compliance. Brother Michael's gaze met yours, a flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. Then it is not the way it must be," he breathed. "The rhythm of life changes as the seeds of dissent, however small, begin to sprout." You realized with a chilling clarity, quiet life you'd embraced was built upon a foundation of shared humanity, a foundation now being eroded by a growing disconnect between the spiritual leadership and the material realities of the world. The question wasn't just about obedience to the abbot, but about the very essence of your monastic vows to serve God and your fellow man. Moment under the silent gaze of the moon, you knew you could no longer remain a passive observer. The crisis wasn't just brewing, it was already upon you. The silence of your days was about to be broken by the urgent call to action, a call that would test the very core of your faith. Tonight, we're going to experience history, not from textbooks, but from the inside. We've been walking through the quiet aisles, breathing the incense-laden air, wool of the monk's habit against our skin. Part 19 left us on the precipice a shadow falling over the familiar rhythm of the monastery. Perhaps it was the unsettling rumors from the outside world, whispers of a sickness that defied understanding, or maybe it was a tremor within the very foundations of your spiritual life, a doubt you couldn't quite name. The peace you'd found, the deep contentment of manual labor and contemplative prayer felt fragile. Today, explore how that fragile peace is tested and how the seemingly mundane skills you've acquired become unexpectedly crucial. Day you learn to read the subtle shifts in the sky, predicting the coming rain by the way the swallows dip and weave, to identify the healing properties of herbs, the bitter tang of wormwood, the sweet perfume of lavender, scent of valerian root. You learn to grind pigments for illuminated manuscripts, the fine dust settling on your forearms, colors lapis lazuli blue, vermilion red, a testament to painstaking labor. These aren't just tasks, the building blocks of a life lived deliberately, a life where every action has purpose. In Part 17, you discovered a profound sense of calm, a contentment that settled deep within your bones, a stark contrast to the clamor of the world you left behind. Part 18 saw you forge a quiet, unspoken bond with Brother Thomas, undescended words built on shared labor in the scriptorium and silent contemplation in the chapel. Now, 1348, that quiet life is about to be shattered. The first signs were subtle. A monk, usually robust, began to cough, racking sound that echoed unnervingly in the cloister. Then came the fever, the dark swellings that appeared in his armpits and groin. Gloom of corruption. The whispered word carried from the nearby market town of St. Albans was the youngish pestilencer. You, with your growing knowledge of the monastery's infirmary and the simple remedies you'd learned from Brother Elias, thrust into a role you never anticipated. Your hands, once steady as you illuminated a delicate initial, trembled slightly as you measured out doses of honey and vinegar, preparing poultices of mashed herbs. The air, the sweet scent of beeswax candles and drying parchment, with the metallic tang of fear and the acrid odor of sickness. One evening, Abbot Benedict summoned you to his chambers. In the soft glow of oil lamps seemed dimmer, the shadows deeper. The abbot, presence usually radiated an unshakable calm, looked weary, his brow furrowed. He sat at his heavy oak desk, a single vellum sheet before him, his quill poised but still. Brother, he began, his voice a low rumble, the sickness spreads. Brother Michael and Brother John, in the past 2 days, our infirmary is overflowing. He gestured to the sheet. The names of those who are ill. We need more hands, more knowledge. He looked directly at you, his gaze piercing. You have a keen eye, brother. You've shown a remarkable aptitude for the healing arts, who have served here for decades. You felt a surge of both apprehension and a strange, nascent strength. Wish of me, Abbot, you asked, your voice surprisingly steady. I need you to organize the infirmary, he said. Prioritize care, tend to the most urgent cases, and if you can identify any patterns, seem to offer even a flicker of hope, you must record them. Our future depends on it. This was far from the quietest life ever. This was a test. You spent the next few days in a blur of activity. You moved through the infirmary, a space that had always felt hushed and respectful, now filled with the groans of the afflicted and the desperate prayers of the healthy. You saw the fear in the eyes of Brother Thomas as he tended to a feverish young novice. You exchanged grim nods with him, a silent acknowledgement of the grim task before you. Your knowledge of herbs, once a gentle pursuit, was now a lifeline. You remembered reading about the use of willow bark for fevers a practice documented by the ancient Romans. You had access to the monastery's extensive herb garden, a treasure trove of nature's remedies. You instructed the younger novices on how to prepare infusions, how to create a cool compress from lemon soaked in rosewater. In the archives of the Royal College of Physicians, centuries later, that during the Black Death relied on empirical observation and the limited medical knowledge of the time, ranged from bloodletting to herbal remedies, with varying degrees of success. Ness of these treatments was often debated, and fear and superstition played a significant role. Your monastic training, however, emphasized meticulous observation, and the careful recording of knowledge gave you an advantage. You were not just a caregiver, were a nascent scientist in a world grappling with the unknown. You began to notice something. Who were already consuming a diet rich in garlic, a common practice in the monastery's refectory, seemed to be faring slightly better. Intense. It was a small observation, a mere whisper of a pattern, but you meticulously recorded it. You spoke with Brother Thomas again, your hands stained with the juice of crushed garlic cloves. "Brother Thomas," you said, raspy from lack of sleep, "I believe the garlic, it might be helping. Seen it in those who eat it regularly." He looked at you, his eyes red, rimmed from exhaustion. "Garlic. It is a strong flavor, brother, but its properties are known," you insisted, recalling the ancient texts that spoke of its purifying qualities. "We should encourage everyone to consume more of it. Cook it into the pottage." He considered your words, his gaze drifting to a monk writhing on a straw pallet. "If there is even a chance," he murmured, "we must try." The monastery, once a sanctuary of quiet contemplation, had become a battlefield. Yet, amidst the chaos, your monastic discipline, your learned patience, and your quiet dedication were proving to be your greatest weapons. Wielding a sword, but a mortar and pestle, not shouting battle cries, but whispering prayers and instructions. The silence you had cultivated was now a source of inner strength, allowing you to act with clarity amidst the terror. The infirmary grew heavy with the scent of herbs and desperation. You, a medieval monk, were facing the ultimate test, but of your acquired knowledge and your quiet resilience. The ancient Roman practice of quarantine, though not fully understood, was something you instinctively applied, separating the sick from the healthy, yet effective measure born from observation and necessity. The quietest life ever had led you to this moment where your silent role was more important than any pronouncement from a pulpit. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the courtyard, you knew the struggle was far from over, but you also knew that you were ready to face whatever tomorrow would bring. Nothing but your faith, your skills, and the quiet strength you had cultivated within these hallowed walls. The knowledge you were gathering, the small victories you were achieving, would be vital for the days, weeks, and months to come. Learned here would ripple far beyond the monastery's stone walls. In the quiet of your room, let's step into a world where silence had different meanings. Beyond the soft glow of your bedside lamp, imagine the deep darkness of a 12th century night, the kind that pressed in on the senses, faintest whisper of wind through stone archways. You, a monk named Brother Thomas, found yourself not just observing this quiet, but steeped in it, a quiet earned through resolution, not imposed by fear. The recent crisis that had fallen over your beloved Abbey of St. Cuthbert had receded, leaving behind a profound stillness. Beeswax candles, mingled with the faint earthy aroma of damp stone and dried herbs, was your constant companion. Wool tunic, woven from the wool of the abbey's own sheep, itched slightly against your skin, a familiar, grounding sensation. Hewn wooden floor beneath your bare feet was cool and smooth from centuries of monks walking the same path. The air, with the murmur of prayer and the rustle of parchment, now held a palpable sense of relief, had filled the cloisters with unease. The hushed discussions about the pilfered relics and the ensuing accusations, replaced by a calm that settled deep into the very foundations of the abbey. Experience becomes your teacher of the past few days had been one of unexpected courage and the quiet strength of conviction. You remembered the gnawing anxiety, the way your stomach had tightened with every furtive glance, every averted gaze. But now, again, the anxiety had been replaced by a quiet satisfaction, a deep, internal hum of peace. You had played your part, crucial one, in unraveling the truth, not with grand pronouncements, observation, and a willingness to speak when others remained silent. The dawn chorus, a symphony of birdsong that would soon fill the air outside your cell, was still a distant promise. For now, there was only the soft sound of your own breathing and the distant, almost imperceptible creak of the abbey's ancient timbers. Hand over the smooth, cool stone of your cell wall, the very stone that had witnessed generations of monks seeking solace and purpose. This quiet was not empty. It was filled with the echoes of devotion, the residue of countless prayers, and now a fresh layer of hard-won peace. The abbot, a man whose wisdom was as deep as the lines etched on his face, had sought you out earlier that morning. First hint of grey began to paint the eastern sky. He found you in the scriptorium, not diligently copying scripture, of the narrow window, a rare indulgence. Brother Thomas, his voice, usually a low rumble, was soft, almost a whisper. The disquiet has passed, and you turned, a faint smile touching your lips. Indeed, Father, the truth, it seems, a way of illuminating the darkest corners. He nodded, his eyes, the colour of faded parchment, held a profound gratitude. Your quiet diligence, your refusal to be swayed by fear or rumour, was instrumental. I confess, beginning to doubt the innocence of many. He paused, then continued, his gaze drifting to the intricate illumination on an open manuscript. It is a reminder, Thomas, that even in the most ordered of lives can harbour shadows, but also that the light of truth, however small, can banish them. He then spoke of Brother Elias, scribe who in his advanced age had been the unintentional conduit for the whispers that had sown discord. Elias, it turned out, had been manipulated by a visiting merchant seeking to sow distrust within the abbey, its resources for his own gain. The pilfered relics, a set of jeweled chalices meant for the king's coronation, recovered from a hidden compartment in the merchant's cart, thanks to your discreet investigation and the help of Brother Benedict, the quiet gardener with an uncanny knack for noticing things out of place. Benedict's testimony, delivered with his usual humble directness, had been the final piece of the puzzle. The merchant has been dealt with, Abbot Michael said, a subtle grimness in his tone. Trouble no abbey again. And Brother Elias, he is receiving our prayers and our understanding. Age can be a heavy cloak, Thomas. Sometimes it obscures the sharper edges of the world. Experience becomes your teacher, and this interaction was a stark lesson in the complexities of human intention, even within the seemingly pure walls of a religious order. Not all deception was born of malice, and not all silence was complicity. Sometimes was simply the quiet resignation of years, the inability to perceive the subtle currents of deceit. Later that day, a simple meal of lentil stew and coarse bread with Brother Benedict in the refectory. The usual hushed conversation was still present, but the undercurrent of tension was gone. Wooden bowls and the soft slurping of stew were now sounds of normalcy, not nervous anticipation. Spoke highly of your observation, Thomas. Benedict said, his voice as gentle as the rain on the abbey's slate roof. He wiped his bowl with a scrap of bread. You have a keen eye for the misplaced detail. You shrugged, rising to your cheeks. And you, Brother Benedict, have a keen ear for the unsaid. That conversation you overheard in the stables, it was the key. Benedict's eyes twinkled. He had, in his unassuming way, overheard the merchant boasting to his accomplice about their plan to frame a rival within the abbey. That was then twisted to implicate others. The Lord works in mysterious ways, doesn't he? Sometimes it's the smallest of seeds that grow into the greatest truths. He then shared a fact you hadn't known. The Benedictine rule, which we follow, emphasizes the importance of humility and obedience, but also interpretations, encourages vigilance against external influences that could disrupt the community's peace, balance. This was a revelation. You had always understood the rule as a set of guidelines for daily life. Its deeper implications, its built-in defenses against the very sort of crisis you had just navigated, was profound. Historical fact that resonated with your lived experience, a testament to the foresight of those who had shaped monastic life centuries ago. This ancient wisdom, written in Latin on vellum, practical than any modern-day security system, as the afternoon sun, a warm golden balm, through the stained glass windows, casting kaleidoscopic patterns on the stone floor, you felt a profound sense of belonging. Your sanctuary was once again a place of true tranquility. The subtle scent of incense, reminder of the divine presence, now felt like a comforting embrace. The rough texture of the wooden bench beneath you, the cool feel of the stone walls, murmur of vespers beginning in the chapel, all these sensory details wove together to create a tapestry of peace. Passage from a modern historical account you'd read before your transmigration. It spoke of how, in medieval times, a monastery was not just a place of worship, but a hub of learning, a center of agriculture. From the harsh realities of the outside world, you understood that now, more than ever, it was a microcosm of stability in an often chaotic era. The quiet you now experienced was not an absence of life, but a fullness of purpose, dedicated to contemplation, community, and the enduring pursuit of peace. The memory of the fear, the suspicion, raveling of your community felt like a distant dream, a storm that had passed, leaving the air cleaner and the bonds stronger. Experience becomes your teacher, and the lesson learned was that true strength often lay not in outward displays of power, quiet persistence of truth, and the unwavering commitment to one's community. The crisis had been averted, but not by a grand heroic act, but by the collective quiet efforts of individuals who chose to see, to listen, and to speak truth, however softly. And the shadows lengthened across the courtyard. You found yourself drawn back to your cell. The air grew cooler, the fainter scent of wood smoke from the kitchens, the hushed sounds of monks preparing for compline, the final service of the day, drift through the corridors. The quiet resolution had been achieved, and the abbey, bathed in the soft, fading light of day, its serene, undisturbed rhythm. Tomorrow, the work would continue, the copying of scripture, the tending of the gardens, quiet prayers. But for tonight, there was only the deep, abiding peace of a community restored, a testament to the quiet strength that lay within its very walls and within your own heart. The silence, potential harbinger of unease, was now a comforting blanket, a promise of continued tranquility in the days and nights to come. The fear, the suspicion, the near unraveling of your community felt like a distant dream, a storm that had passed, the air cleaner and the bonds stronger. As you settle into the quiet rhythm of your cell, the greatest lessons are often learned not in the clamor of events, but in the stillness that follows. And with the dawn awaits, imagine waking up in an era where your biggest worry wasn't Wi-Fi connectivity, social media trend, but the gentle chime of the matins bell summoning you from slumber. This isn't a dream. Reality, as a Benedictine monk in the year of our Lord 1187 within the hallowed stone walls of St. Cuthbert's Abbey, deep in the verdant valleys of Northumbria, the air, cool and carrying the earthy scent of damp stone and distant wood smoke, your rough wool habit, scratchy against your skin, is a stark contrast to the soft cotton sheets of your past life. Of the flagstone floor seeps through your worn sandals as you rise, your joints protesting with a stiffness you'd never known. Silence is profound, broken only by the rustling of your garment and the distant, mournful cry of an owl. This quiet is not an absence of sound, but a presence, a tangible entity that wraps around you, demanding your attention. You are no longer the hurried, distracted individual of the 21st century. You are Brother Alaric, is now measured by the divine office and the turning of the seasons. The memory of your former life, cacophony of beeping notifications and incessant digital chatter feels like a phantom limb you are slowly learning to ignore. Differently, when your days are structured by the ancient monastic rule of Saint Benedict, the sun a celestial clock, your waking and sleeping, your prayers and your labor, you find yourself in the scriptorium, thick with the scent of ink and parchment. Sunlight streams through the high arched windows, motes dancing in the air like tiny golden spirits. Your hands, once accustomed to the smooth surface of a smartphone screen, now carefully guide a quill across a vellum sheet, copying passages from the Gospels. Weight of the quill, the slight resistance of the ink on the parchment, scratching sound, these sensations anchor you to this moment, to this sacred task. Meticulously illuminating a manuscript, a painstaking process that requires immense patience and focus. The vibrant pigments from minerals and plants are mixed with egg yolk to create luminous hues for the initial letters of each chapter. Ultramarine blue, derived from lapis lazuli imported from distant lands, gleams with an almost otherworldly intensity. Rich vermilion, made from cinnabar, burns with a fiery passion. You recall a conversation with Brother Thomas, whose face was a roadmap of devotion and hardship. He had been recounting the arduous journey of the lapis lazuli, explaining how it traveled from the mines of Afghanistan, across treacherous mountain passes, trade routes controlled by merchants who often paid exorbitant tolls, and finally reached the shores of England. Stroke of this brush, Brother Alaric, he had rasped, his voice like dry leaves rustling, as a prayer, testament to the divine beauty we strive to capture. It is a labor of love, and to generations yet unborn who will marvel at his word. He had then placed a trembling hand on your shoulder, his touch surprisingly firm. Do not rush, my son. Perfection takes time and unwavering dedication. You remember the scent of his worn woolen robe, a blend of sweat, incense, of dried herbs he used for his ailments. Time moves differently when your sustenance is simple yet deeply satisfying. Echoing hall with sturdy oak tables is where you share your meals in silence. read aloud from sacred texts. Today, the meal is a hearty pottage of barley, lentils, and root vegetables, seasoned with herbs from the abbey's own garden. The warmth of the thick, earthenware bowl in your hands is comforting. The earthy aroma of the stew fills the air, mingling with the faint scent of beeswax from the sputtering candles. You watch Brother Michael, with earnest eyes, carefully ladling the pottage, his movements precise and unhurried. He catches your eye and offers a small, imperceptible nod of acknowledgement. The taste of the food is robust, wholesome, a stark contrast to the processed meals of your former existence. You chew slowly, savoring each mouthful, praising the simple abundance provided by the land and the labor of your brethren. You remember reading in the Abbey's ancient Chronicles, about the devastating impact of the Great Famine of 1069, 170, a period when crops failed and starvation gripped the land. The monks of St. Cuthbert's, even then, sustained themselves through careful management of their resources, and that charity extended to the surrounding villages. Imbues your simple meal with a profound sense of gratitude. Time moves differently when your interactions are measured and deliberate. You find yourself assisting Brother John in the Abbey's infirmary. He is tending to Brother Peter. Persistent cough that racks his frail body is heavy with the scent of medicinal herbs, chamomile for its calming properties, horehound for coughs, willow bark for pain. Brother John, his face etched with compassion, feeds Brother Peter a concoction made from honey and herbs. "Drink this, Brother Peter," he murmurs, and reassuring, "May it bring you ease." Brother Peter, his eyes closed, weakly swallows, a faint sigh escaping his lips. Observe Brother John's gentle touch, the quiet efficiency of his movements as he changes Brother Peter's linen. He explains to you, hushed tones, the importance of cleanliness and the limited understanding of disease during this era. Rely on God's grace and the bounty of nature, he says, his brow furrowed with concern. Of cities like Salerno and Montpellier have made great strides, but here is often passed down through generations, observation and the wisdom of the ancients. You recall a documentary you once watched about the Black Death, a terrifying pandemic that would sweep through Europe centuries later, reminder of the fragility of life and the constant struggle against unseen enemies. Here, in this quiet infirmary, see the precursors to that struggle, the quiet dedication to alleviating suffering. Differently when your inner landscape begins to shift. The constant rhythm of prayer, labor, reflection has begun to quiet the incessant chatter of your mind. The anxieties that once consumed you, career pressures, social obligations, the endless pursuit of more have receded, replaced by a profound sense of peace. You find yourself appreciating the subtle beauty of the world around you with a clarity you never possessed before. Filters through the stained glass windows, painting shifting patterns on the stone floor. Scent of rain on dry earth after a summer shower. The resonant hum of the monks chanting in the chapel. These simple things now hold immense significance. You realize that this monastic life, stripped of modern distractions, has allowed you to reconnect with a deeper, the more fundamental aspect of yourself. The silence, once unnerving, has become a sanctuary, a space for introspection and spiritual growth. But you understand now that true richness is not found in possessions or external validation. Contentment and a connection to something greater than yourself. The quiet life you discover is not an empty one, filled with a profound, enduring purpose. As the Vespers bell begins to toll, signaling the end of the day, feel a sense of quiet anticipation for the stillness that awaits, a stillness that has become your truest companion. The path ahead, though still unfolding, feels less like a journey and more like a homecoming back to an age when the very concept of normal was radically different, an era before the ceaseless hum of electricity, the digital whispers that fill our modern lives. Imagine a world where the loudest sound might be the tolling of a bell of parchment or the murmur of prayers echoing through stone halls. You, in this imagined existence, profound quietude, a deliberate withdrawal from the clamour of the world outside the monastery walls. Your journey, shock of awakening to this monastic existence, has been one of gradual acclimatization. Old anxieties replaced by a new, albeit stark, sense of purpose. The initial disorientation has softened, a quiet acceptance, a deepening understanding of the value found not in constant engagement, but in mindful presence. The very air you breathe feels different, cleaner, imbued with the scent of dried herbs and beeswax, a stark contrast to the exhaust fumes and artificial fragrances of your former life. You recall the initial terror, strangeness of the coarse woolen habit, the unfamiliar weight of the wooden crucifix against your chest. But now, those memories are like distant echoes, the sharp edges smoothed by the steady rhythm of monastic life. The silence, once a void, has become a canvas painted with the subtle hues of devotion, contemplation, and the quiet camaraderie of your fellow brothers. As the seasons change, so too does the texture of your days. The harsh winter winds whistling through the unglazed windows of your cell, forcing you to huddle closer to the meager warmth of your straw-filled pallet, has given way to the gentle awakening of spring. Tentative birdsong, a delicate melody against the backdrop of the monastery's enduring quiet, is a balm to your soul. You remember the first time you heard it, a sound so pure and unadulterated, it brought tears to your eyes. Now, it's a familiar companion, the droning chant of matins. Your hands, once accustomed to the smooth glass of a smartphone, colossus of manual labor, they have learned to grind pigments for illumination, to mend worn robes, tend the monastery's herb garden, its earthy scent a constant, grounding presence, the cool, damp stone of the cloister under your bare feet, a sensation that once sent shivers of discomfort down your spine. There is now a familiar grounding, the scent of damp earth after a spring rain, mingled with the faint aroma of incense drifting from the chapel. Olfactory tapestry. You recall a particularly vivid memory from the early days, a conversation with Brother Thomas, whose face was a roadmap of the years, etched with both hardship and profound peace. You had been struggling with the concept of obedience, the relinquishing of personal will. He had taken your roughened hands, his own gnarled and strong, and said, "My son, true freedom is not found in doing as you please, but in doing what is right, in aligning your will with the divine. This quiet life, it is a crucible burning away the dross, pure gold of the spirit." His words, delivered in a voice like worn leather, had resonated deeply. Perspective on the enforced stillness. The monastery itself, a venerable structure of weathered grey stone, as a testament to centuries of faith and labour. You can trace the lines of Romanesque arches in the chapel, earlier basilica on this very site, a whisper of ancient history beneath the medieval edifice. The scriptorium, hushed reverence, is where you spend many hours. The scratch of quill on parchment, delicate, it's almost swallowed by the silence, is now a comforting rhythm. The ink, a deep, viscous black of gall nuts and iron. You are learning the art of illumination, applying gold leaf to the initial letters of psalms, your breath held tight to avoid disturbing the delicate shimmer. Derived from lapis lazuli, the rich reds of vermilion, these colors, painstakingly ground and mixed, to the sacred texts, you remember a particularly challenging day when a severe plague swept through a nearby village. The distant cries of mourning carried on the wind a stark reminder of the fragility of life beyond the monastery's protective embrace. His face a mask of concern had led the brothers in fervent prayer, his voice a steady anchor in the sea of uncertainty. The importance of compassion, of offering solace even when unable to offer a cure. A stark contrast to the modern medical advancements you once took for granted, the simple, hearty meals, thick barley bread, lentil stew, salted fish are sustenance, not indulgence. The rough texture of the wooden trencher, of the earthenware cup against the table, these are the sounds and textures of your new reality. You have even learned to appreciate the subtle bitterness of the watered wine, a far cry from the complex vintages of your former life. The silence, once a burden, has transformed into a sanctuary. It allows for introspection into the self that the cacophony of the outside world had always obscured. You find yourself observing the smallest details, filters as through the stained glass windows, casting vibrant patterns on the cold stone floor, weave of your woolen habit, the quiet, the intricate determined movements of the brothers as they go about their tasks. Mere observations, they are moments of profound connection, of recognizing the divine in the mundane. Monastery's archives, a collection of illuminated manuscripts dating back to the 12th century, act of copying these texts was considered a form of prayer, a way to keep the word of God alive and accessible. Detail the hours of unwavering focus required, speak volumes about the value placed on stillness and dedication. That this quietest life, ever far from being empty, with a richness that cannot be measured in external achievements or fleeting pleasures. It is a richness of the spirit, abiding peace that settles within you like the dust motes dancing in the sunlit shafts of the chapel. Fear has long since dissipated, replaced by a quiet contentment, belonging that transcends the superficial connections of your past. And as the day draws to a close, final Vespers bell tolls, casting its melancholic melody across the darkening landscape. Find yourself not yearning for the world you left behind, but embracing the profound stillness that now defines your existence. No longer an absence, but a presence, a gentle, constant companion that whispers truths the world outside could never shout. The subtle shift in the air, the cooling of the stone beneath your feet, the fading light, these are the signals of a day's end, the promise of another dawn, another opportunity to deepen your understanding of the enduring power of quiet. Your journey here, though born of an unimaginable transition, has revealed a profound truth that sometimes vibrant lives are lived not in the spotlight, but in the hushed reverence of the shadows, where the soul can truly unfurl. As you prepare to rest your head on the rough linen pillow, the echoes of your monastic day settle around you, ting blanket of silence, preparing you for the subtle shifts that tomorrow will undoubtedly bring. History settles gently on your shoulders as our story begins, a familiar cloak woven from the quiet hum of the past. You are a medieval monk, the echoes of your temporal life fading like mist in the dawn. Crisis that had briefly disturbed the hallowed stillness of the abbey, perhaps a misunderstanding over monastic duties. Settling arrival of a stranger from a distant, less tranquil land has long since been resolved. Is once more a sanctuary of hushed reverence, the refectory a place of quiet sustenance, contemplative steps. The vibrant tapestry of your monastic existence once momentarily frayed, meticulously rewoven, each thread of routine and devotion now a comforting pattern against the vast canvas of time. Blur into weeks, you find yourself settling deeper into the rhythm of the monastic life. The rough wool of your habit, once a novelty, familiar second skin, its earthy scent a constant, grounding presence. The cool stone of the cloister under your bare feet is a tactile anchor, each step a meditation. You recall the hushed whispers of your fellow brothers, the low murmur of Gregorian chant that fills the chapel at dawn and dusk, scratching of quills on parchment in the scriptorium. Even the simple act of breaking bread, coarse texture of the unleavened bread, and the slightly sour tang of the watered wine has become a ritual of profound peace. You remember Brother Thomas, his hands gnarled and stained with ink, patiently teaching you the art of illumination, vibrant blues and reds that brought sacred text to life. His voice, a gentle rasp, would often carry snippets of lore, saints and martyrs, and the founding of this very abbey, St. Cuthbert's Priory, in the late 7th century by the venerable monk himself. Today, however, the usual serenity feels amplified, calm settling within you. You've spent the morning in the gardens, tending to the medicinal herbs, comfrey, horehound, root, their pungent aromas mingling with the damp earth. The sun, a pale disk through the high infirmary, casts long shadows across the flagstone floor. Sister Agnes, her face etched with years of quiet service, her worn sandals making barely a sound. Brother, she begins, her voice a soft breath. The abbot wishes to speak with you. He has received word from Canterbury. You follow her through the familiar corridors, growing cooler as you approach the abbot's chambers. Abbot Alaric, a man whose wisdom seemed as ancient as the stones of the abbey. Simple wooden desk, a single candle flickering, casting dancing shadows on the walls. An old parchment fills the air. He gestures for you to sit. Brother, he says, his gaze steady and kind. Messenger has arrived from the Archbishop. He brings news of the new monastic reforms being considered in Rome. Reforms that, it is said, uniformity to our practices across the land. He pauses, then continues. A return to stricter observance, a simplification of our daily lives, focus on the contemplation of God's word. You listen, intently absorbing his words. The first time you've heard whispers of such changes. In a world where communication traveled at the pace of a horse's gallop, from Rome, the heart of Christendom arrived like seismic tremors rippling through even the most isolated communities. You recall a similar discussion that had taken place in the 12th century when the Cistercian order was gaining prominence, a more austere lifestyle. This, however, felt different, more fundamental. Also spoke. Abbot Alaric continues, his voice dropping slightly, of the growing unrest in the southern territories, raiding parties, of disruptions to the trade routes that bring us our necessities. It seems the quietude we cherish is not entirely immune to the world's clamour. He sighs, sound that seems to carry the weight of centuries. But for now, our walls hold, and our purpose remains. Been diligent in your studies, brother. Your understanding of the ancient texts, particularly the works of Bede, has been invaluable to our library. As days blur into weeks, you find yourself increasingly drawn to the quiet contemplation of Bede's Aes Ecclesiastical History of the English People, a treasure housed within the Abbey's library. The precise prose, the meticulous chronicling of events, preserving knowledge in a world where so much could be lost to fire or conflict, resonates deeply. She here effort involved in copying such manuscripts, the painstaking labor of monks in scriptoria across Europe, preserving the wisdom of the past for future generations. It's a stark contrast to the instant nature of digital information we have today, where knowledge is a click away, yet perhaps more easily forgotten. The year 1066, a date etched into your mind from your previous life, a year of profound upheaval for England, meticulously documented by chroniclers who, like Bede, understood the power of recording history. With Brother Thomas continues, his gentle guidance a constant source of comfort. One afternoon, working on a new illuminated manuscript of Psalter for the local village church, he shares a personal reflection. He says, his voice raspy, as he carefully applies gold leaf to a capital letter, the metallic sheen catching the light, once a merchant in the bustling city of London. The noise, the crowds, the constant haggling, it was a life of endless striving. The plague came, and I saw how quickly it all could vanish. I found solace here in this silence. It is a different kind of wealth. He smiles, a crinkling of his eyes. This life teaches you to see what truly matters. As days blur into weeks, you find yourself internalizing this lesson. Your past life, the deadlines, the social pressures, connectivity, seem to belong to another existence entirely, a distant, almost alien memory. Here, your responsibilities are clear, your purpose defined by prayer, work, and contemplation. The scent of incense, the cool touch of the stone, the taste of simple fare, the sound of quiet chanting, these are the anchors of your present reality. You are a part of a continuum, chains stretching back through centuries, a quiet guardian of tradition and faith. The weight of history is no longer a burden, but a comforting presence, a testament to the enduring human spirit's search for meaning and peace. Abbott's words about the reforms and the distant unrest linger in your mind, but they do not disturb your inner calm. More threads in the rich tapestry of existence, realities that, for now, remain outside the tranquil walls of sane. As the sun begins its slow descent, painting the sky in hues of rose and amethyst, you feel a familiar drowsiness. Quiet of the abbey, so long a sanctuary, is now pulling you back into its gentle embrace. The lessons learned, the peace found, historical echoes that have filled your days, they all coalesce into a profound sense of contentment. You close your eyes, chanting a Vespers, a lullaby, and feel yourself drifting, not away from this life, but deeper into its serene heart, ready to surrender to the restorative power of slumber. The promise of another day, filled with the same quiet devotion, awaits certainty in the vast expanse of time.